Chapter 9:15. Without giving Chu Qingyan too much time to think, the two had already arrived in front of her. However, one was passionately acting cute, while the other was aloof and expressionless. Chu Qingyan rubbed little Annoyance's head. Just as she was about to ask who this aloof master was, she saw Bai Yutong and the others running away from her. They surrounded the aloof wolf, spinning and jumping. What made her even more surprised was that the aloof wolf's expression changed when facing these three. It actually revealed a gentle and affectionate look that only a human would have. Without asking, Chu Qingyan also guessed the aloof wolf's identity. Although she had all kinds of questions about its appearance, this place was really not suitable for chatting, so she invited them into the residence. As the big brother, Bai Yutong declined the master's invitation and volunteered to watch over this pack of hot-blooded wolves. Chu Qingyan did not force it. Indeed, the wolf pack needed someone to restrain it. Otherwise, if they hurt people, the consequences would be serious. Let them go play with the Southern Song soldiers, Xiao Su suddenly suggested. Chu Qingyan smiled sinisterly. Big Ice Cube's thinking is brilliant. This way, those captured soldiers would not dare to act rashly. After all, there were many of them. If they rebelled, it would take a certain amount of energy to suppress them. With Bai Yutong and the others, they could only cower. The group returned to the residence once again. After a night of concealment and a day of fighting, Chu Qingyan was already exhausted. She called for people to feed Little Hai and the others, then she went to wash up. Otherwise, she would be sticky all over and uncomfortable sitting down. When she changed into a new set of clean clothes and walked out, she saw that there was already someone sitting in the room. Moreover, there was a fragrant meal on the table. She immediately went up and took the bowl of rice. Without hesitation, she shoveled in a mouthful and said with a lisp, "How do you know I'm hungry?" This question was too low class. "You haven't eaten for a day. It's not like you're made of iron." Xiao Su smiled helplessly. "Then I'll start eating." She swallowed in big mouthfuls. Actually, these dishes were just ordinary vegetables and radishes. However, to the starving Chu Qingyan, it was already a supreme delicacy. Perhaps she was hungry and found everything delicious. Xiao Su saw this and his gaze softened. He picked up some food and placed it in her bowl. "Don't just eat. You have to eat too." Chu Qingyan nodded. She didn't say anything and quickly dug into the food. It was only after she finished 2 bowls of rice that she felt alive again. She wiped her lips and smiled contentedly, not caring about anything else. Xiao Su raised his hand to wipe the rice grains on her cheeks and said with a smile, "Xiao Fan and the others are waiting in the yard. They seem to have something to say to you." Chu Qingyan was surprised. "They should be playing at this time. Why are you looking for me? Also, why didn't you tell me beforehand? I don't want you to faint from hunger later. Although you're their master, that's too embarrassing," Xiao Su said in a dignified manner. Chu Qingyan nodded and said that he was very thoughtful. Then she walked out happily. Xiao Su frowned slightly as he looked at her joyful expression that she didn't seem to notice. When he walked over just now, he met Xiao Fan and the others and found that they were not in a good mood. He had a hunch that it was not a good thing, so he let the little one eat and drink until she was full. No matter what happened, she would have enough energy to face it. As soon as Chu Qingyan walked out of the room, she saw the few animals waiting in a row in the yard. She smiled. "Why don't you go play or sleep? Aren't you guys tired from the whole day?" Ow! Glutinous rice ball walked up and rubbed against her trousers. Translation: Master is the most tired. "We are not tired." Chu Qingyan squatted down and stroked its head. Then she turned to Xiao Fan and smiled. "Aren't you going to introduce that one?" Chu Qingyan could not believe her eyes when she heard that. Little Annoyance was blushing. God, who could tell her that she could actually see a wolf being shy in her lifetime? If it were 5 years ago, she would never have believed that it was possible to distinguish the emotions of animals through their fur. Ow 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 ow, Xiao Fan growled a few times. The general idea was, "This is my husband. We were separated from each other in the past." Then she was pregnant with wolf pups. In order to avoid being hunted down by hunters, she had to hide all the way. In the end, she was rescued by Father Chu and so on. Later, She fell in love with her master and settled down. The cold wolf king walked up and stretched out its front paw to gently pat its wife's head. Then, it turned to look at Chu Qingyan coldly. Ow ow, ow 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 ow. The general idea was, this king has been looking for them for more than half a year and only found them yesterday. Coincidentally, something happened to you, so I gathered the wolves to help you. This king is very grateful for everything you have done for this king's wife and children. Chu Qingyan sighed. This was the touching story of finding one's wife thousands of miles away, and the story of repaying the debt of gratitude for saving his life. She nodded and said, "You're welcome, you're welcome." However, she did not notice the reluctance in the other's eyes. At this moment, Xiao Fan approached her and licked her fingers, showing a rare attachment. Chu Qingyan was slightly stunned. Then, she smiled and said, "Why are you so sentimental now that the family is reunited?" Ow ow, Xiao Fan raised its head. Its eyes were not as green as usual at night. Instead, they were watery. Translation: Master, we're leaving. This was like a bolt of lightning that struck her instantly. She was unprepared and was shocked on the spot. Xiao Hai, who was playing with its feathers on a nearby tree, almost fell from the tree when it heard this. It dug its ears, suspecting that it was hearing things. After a while, the moisture on her hands made her recover from the shock. "Did I hear wrongly? Did you say that you're leaving?" Xiao Fan: "Yes, master. We're leaving. We're here to say goodbye." Chu Qingyan murmured, "When are you leaving?" Cold Wolf King: "Tonight. A happy family, reunited after thousands of miles. They should be running freely in the mountains and on the grasslands. She had no reason to force them to stay. Then you have to be careful. When you miss me, you can come back to see me often. Oh no, wait until the war is over. Otherwise, it's too dangerous to be by my side." Chu Qingyan spoke incoherently, but her face kept smiling gently. Xiao Fan rubbed its head against her palm again. Then, it took a few steps back and gazed deeply at her. After a while, it turned and ran toward the gate. 5 figures, like 5 white lights, disappeared in the blink of an eye. Chu Qingyan maintained her squatting position for a long while before slowly standing up. She turned and whispered to the person who had walked up behind her. "Big Ice Cube, Xiao Fan, they're gone." Her eyes were sparkling and translucent, as if the moonlight had shone into her eyes and formed a starry lake. Chapter 9:16. I heard it. Xiao Su's voice was gentle. He had witnessed everything in the corridor just now. However, he could not go forward to help her, because this was a separation she had to face. "I never thought that one day they would leave me, just like when we first met. I never thought that they would stay." Just now, in front of Little Annoyance and the others, she did not show a trace of reluctance, because she was afraid that it would be difficult for them. But in front of Big Ice, she could no longer hide her emotions. There are 8 hardships in life: birth, old age, illness, death, love, separation, resentment, longing, and unable to let go. Xiao Su looked at her calmly, with a comforting smile and pity in his voice. "This is what we will experience in life. Birth, old age, illness, and death. We have to face it with a normal heart. Don't hate, don't ask, don't force, and don't be sad in the face of separation. I believe that everything has its own destiny." Chu Qingyan listened, but she still felt sad in her heart. Growth is falling, healing, loss, pain, reluctance, strength, sadness, and then you will grow up. Actually, thinking about it, being lucky enough to meet and accompany them for a short time is enough to cherish and miss. They have their own lives, we have our own path to walk. We can't let them leave their snow mountains, their homes, and their friends for our own selfish reasons. She curved her lips and tried to smile. Tears fell. Xiao Su looked at her comforting herself and couldn't bear it. He reached out and hugged her, sighing softly. "If you're sad, say it. I know that it is a happy thing for them to reunite and return to their homeland after a long separation. I want to bless them, but I can't bear to part with them." She sobbed, unable to suppress her sadness. He raised his hand and stroked her head, his gaze gentle. "Ian, they belong to heaven and earth. Sooner or later, they will leave one day. You don't have to be too sad. Family and friends will leave, but husband and wife will never be separated. I will be with you for my whole life. Chu Qingyan nodded and looked at him with teary eyes. I will also be with you. We will never be separated. Little C also flew down from the branch and pecked the back of her hand. Xiao, he expressed that he would not leave either. They were the noble eagle race. Once they recognized a master, they swore loyalty to him. They wouldn't be like the wolf clan, who were fickle and didn't keep their word, running away in the face of disaster. Chu Qingyan felt the concern, but she wanted to cry even more. She buried her head in Big Ice's chest and cried silently. Xiao Su followed her back and did not say anything else. The little fellow was a sentimental and righteous person. If he didn't let her vent, it might become a knot in her heart in the future. The only thing he could do was to stay by her side and share her joy, anger, and sorrow. A moment later, she suddenly thought of something and said in annoyance, "Oh right, the city gates are already closed. I'll get someone to open the gates and let them out." Xiao Su chuckled. "It's too late to remember now. I've already asked someone to open the door." Chu Qingyan was relieved. She smiled at him pitifully. "You're so thoughtful." Xiao Su shook his head and smiled helplessly. He reached out to wipe away the remaining tears at the corner of her eyes. He had once thought of never letting her cry again in this life, but he was powerless in the face of such a situation. There were too many things in this world that he couldn't control. The only thing he could do was treat her better. At this moment, a familiar sound of running came from outside the courtyard. Chu Qingyan subconsciously looked at the person in front of her, as if seeking confirmation of something. Xiao Su was also a little surprised. He was facing the courtyard gate and saw a few white figures rushing in. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. He put his hands on her shoulders and said with a smile, "Turn around and see who's back?" She was turned around by Big Ice, but she was not as fast as the other party. They rushed up and pounced on her. When she saw clearly who it was, her eyes moistened again. A moment ago, they turned and left without looking back. The next moment, they appeared in front of her again. It was simply playing with her heart. "Didn't you leave with your parents?" Chu Qingyan asked with a trembling voice. After leaving Jiangning County, Little Annoyance reluctantly looked back in the direction they came from. "Aloof Wolf King, you don't have to worry. I left by Yutang and the others to accompany her and protect her safety." As the Wolf King spoke, he muttered, "What kind of names did you give to your 3 children? Why are they all food? They don't have any of the prestige of the Wolf clan's imperial family. Forget it, forget it. Seeing that you're my savior, I'll just call you that for the time being. Seeing that those few also seem to like such mediocre names, I'll just let them be." Little Annoyance, "Hubby, do you think Glutinous Rice Ball and the others can do it?" Aloof Wolf King, as the future king of the Wolf clan, they should experience hardships to wash away their impurities and accumulate experience to become outstanding Wolf clan leaders. Survival of the fittest is normal. However, the 3 of them have been taught very well by you and that girl. If they follow that girl, perhaps they will have a different fate. Little Annoyance, but, Aloof Wolf King, you don't have to think too much. Children and grandchildren have their own blessings. That Miss Chu is a person of good fortune. It's their good fortune to be able to follow her. Moreover, I'm already preparing to step down from the throne and enjoy my old age. Now, I'm just waiting for them to finish their studies and come back to inherit. Little Annoyance, hubby is right. Little Annoyance looked back at the brightly lit town again, her gaze resolute and resolute. Master, all good things must come to an end. I wish you a safe and smooth journey. On the mountain peak, 2 snow wolves were chasing each other. Under the full moon, they stopped and howled. Chapter 9:17. Xiao Su was actually able to break through this prince's carefully arranged trap. Not only that, but he also took the opportunity to break through Jiangning County. It seems that this prince really underestimated him. Pang Huang crushed the letter in his hand. His expression was dark and gloomy. At this time, a subordinate came to report that Ray Luo had returned. "Come in." Luo walked in with one hand pressed down. His entire body was covered in injuries. How did you get yourself into such a sorry state? Pang Huang frowned. This subordinate encountered a pack of wolves and spent a lot of effort to return. Luo thought of the ferocious wolves on the road, and his hand unconsciously trembled. Pang Huang was surprised. A pack of wolves? Luo said truthfully, time was tight today, so I didn't write it clearly in the letter. Our plan was foolproof, but a pack of wolves and eagles came out of nowhere and helped Xiao Su break through the encirclement. Our leader was killed in one shot. Originally, we were about to capture the people hiding in the city, but we were stopped by the wolves and eagles. Our people didn't have time to take care of them. Under the cooperation of Xiao Su and the people inside the city was breached and Lu Xiang was captured. Birds and beasts actually helped humans fight together. This is simply too unimaginable. Luo still couldn't forget what he had seen and heard today. It was simply too shocking. Even if he said it himself, he found it hard to believe. When Luo spoke, Pang Huang went from being shocked to calmness in the end. He waved his hand. I've heard that Ao Ing used to send messages and hunt. A few decades ago, the ancestors also trained a group of wolf dogs to be the vanguard of war. This isn't surprising. Speaking of this, his voice suddenly turned cold. Even if the other party had the help of animals, you shouldn't have lost so miserably. It must be that Lu Xiang and the others underestimated the enemy too much. Looking at the layout, if they scattered their people and missed the opportunity, they would definitely be able to kill them. You have really disappointed this prince. Luo quickly knelt down. This subordinate knows his mistake. Pang Huang impatiently waved his hand for him to get up. Things have already gotten to this point. One of you is injured, one dead, and one captured. This is enough to make this prince worried. Don't show off in front of this prince. Go and treat your injuries. Luo accepted the order in fear and trepidation. At this moment, an aide named Qing Qing stood beside Xiao Su. His appearance was nothing special, and he was the type that couldn't be found in a crowd. However, compared to the tall and mighty southern blue people, he was too short. His squinted eyes gave off a sinister feeling, as if he would be targeted and schemed against if he wasn't careful. Your Highness, it's just Jiangning County. We don't have to care too much about it. When the time comes, we can come up with a plan to snatch it over. Qing Cheng's voice was low and hoarse. Pang Huang heard this and said, this crown prince just feels that it is not worth sacrificing 20,000 soldiers and 2 capable generals. Qing Cheng sneered. Your Highness, Lu Xiang and the others, as well as the soldiers under their command, were recruited by you from the second prince's side. Although they appear to be subservient on the surface, they have many tricks up their sleeves. Borrowing Xiao Su's hand to get rid of them is also pulling out a thorn in your side. You didn't lose anything, so there is no need to worry. Pang Huang smiled viciously. Qing Cheng had hit the nail on the head. The reason why he had sent Lu Xiang to defend the city and only gave them 20,000 soldiers was not only because his plan only required so many people, but also because he wanted to use this opportunity to weaken their manpower and give his second brother a warning. His second brother was currently under house arrest in his mansion. When he heard that his men had been completely annihilated, he would definitely suffer in silence like a mute eating bitter herbs. This was the fate of those who offended him. Pang Huang snorted. Mr. Qing Cheng, although it is good to get rid of a thorn, that thorn also brought out this prince's flesh and blood. It still hurts a bit. Do you have a way to give Xiao Su a big gift in return? The reason why Qing Cheng stepped forward was because he already had a plan. Your Highness, Jiangning County is vast and sparsely populated, but it is surrounded by mountains. The citizens only have one source of water, which is Jiangning River. This one feels that we can do something about it and set a trap while we are at it. Pang Huang understood immediately and laughed heartily. As expected of this prince's strategist, you really hit the nail on the head. If you can delay Xiao Su and ruthlessly defeat him, then this prince will reward you handsomely. Then please wait and see, Your Highness, Qing Cheng said confidently. His shifty eyes flashed with a sinister light. Late at night, several black-clothed men silently leaped upstream of Jiangning River. Seeing that there was no one around, They took out a bottle and poured it into the river. A purplish-black liquid flowed out of the bottle and into the river, disappearing in an instant. Seeing that they had succeeded, they put away the bottle and then disappeared in a few flashes. Early in the morning, Chu Qingyan was woken up by the cries of Bai Yutang and the others. She got up with a head of messy hair and helplessly cursed in her heart. These fellows even took over the work of crowing roosters. They were treating themselves more and more like domesticated dogs. After getting up and changing her clothes, she planned to brush her teeth and wash up. Suddenly, she remembered that Xining wasn't by her side and those men wouldn't prepare these things for her. She couldn't help but pat her head and walk outside. It seemed like she had to rely on herself. As soon as she walked out, several snow wolves ran over and happily said good morning. Chu Qingyan face-bombed. If it weren't for you fellows disturbing me, I wouldn't have gotten up before dawn. Forget it, I won't bicker with them. Let's go, big sister will take you out for a stroll. Chu Qingyan led them out of the residence. She wanted to see what the town looked like after they had reclaimed it. Early in the morning, many women came out to fetch water and wash clothes. Not far away, there were soldiers helping to repair the houses. Chu Qingyan looked at the people coming and going with smiles. She couldn't help but smile. Although the houses were burned down and things were smashed, with their own people protecting them, the pain of the past would not be so deep. For the people, the country's strength was strong and let them live and work in peace. This was what they looked forward to. And Big Ice Cube and the soldiers he led gave them a sense of security so that they would no longer be frightened. A person's charm sometimes lay in the steadiness and reliability he showed under the responsibility he bore. And Big Ice Cube was the same. This feeling of glory continued until Chu Qingyan walked in front of a tofu pudding vendor. Boss, please give me 4 bowls of soy milk and 4 youtiao. Chu Qingyan ordered. Under Bai Yutang's gentle tug, she added 3 more youtiao. These are the wolf heroes, right? The old vendor looked at Bai Yutang and the others in surprise. As he spoke, several people surrounded them. Chu Qingyan touched her head, not knowing how to answer. Overnight, her family became internet celebrities. The internet celebrities licked their fur, looking ignorant and adorable. Howl howl. Translation: Boss, hurry up with our youtiao, the wolves are starving. At this moment, someone suddenly screamed. Come quickly, Aunt Shen fainted. Chapter 9:18. This exclamation caught Chu Qingyan's attention. At this moment, many commoners had already gathered around. Chu Qingyan walked over. When the crowd saw her, they opened up a path for her. Chu Qingyan nodded gratefully. Then she saw Aunt Shen lying on the ground. Her eyes were tightly shut, her lips were pale, and she was foaming at the mouth. Did she faint because she was too tired? A commoner at the side guessed. Chu Qingyan observed her for a moment and reached out to check her breathing. When she found that she was still breathing, she said, carry her to the prefectural governor's residence and find a doctor called Qing Yanluo. She will help treat her. But thank you, little brother Chu. The onlookers immediately carried Aunt Shen away. Chu Qingyan looked in the direction where the crowd left and couldn't help but rub her nose. It was really surprising that everyone knew her surname. At this moment, Bai Yutang and the rest were already impatient and wanted to go eat breakfast. Chu Qingyan smiled and brought them back to the tofu stall to sit down and wait quietly. Soy milk and youtiao here. Little brother Chu and the other heroes, please enjoy, the old man said kindly. Chu Qingyan nodded in thanks and prepared to set the bowls for them. She thought to herself that she should buy the bowls that glutinous rice ball and the rest had drunk from. After all, humans and wolves were different. Just as glutinous rice ball and the rest were about to pounce forward to eat, the old man walked back to the stall and suddenly swayed and collapsed. Uncle! Chu Qingyan felt a black shadow pass by as she immediately raised her head and cried out in alarm. She had just stood up to help the old man up when she saw the commoners who were eating at the next table also lying on the table, foaming at the mouth. A large group of people had collapsed in an instant. Moreover, their symptoms were similar to Aunt Shen's. What was going on? Was it mass poisoning? These 4 words floated over her head. Little brother Chu, little brother Chu. Just as she was testing everyone's breathing, Fang Lu quickly ran over with his men. Fang Lu. Chu Qingyan stood up and frowned. Did something happen? Fang Lu nodded with a very serious expression. This morning, soldiers in the barracks fainted one after another. Following that, many commoners suddenly fainted in the city. The situation came so suddenly, Lord Ethereal and Miss Cheng have already begun to examine them, but more and more people are fainting. The situation is getting out of control. His Highness ordered you to return to the residence immediately. Chu Qingyan's face changed. How could this be? Lord Kongling said that he might have been poisoned, but we'll have to wait for them to study the specifics before making a conclusion, Fang Lu replied. Chu Qingyan calmed herself down and scanned the surroundings of the tofu stall. Her eyes flashed as she said, Fang Lu, pass down the order. Tell the citizens in the city and the soldiers in the barracks not to touch food or water from this moment onwards. If anyone has eaten or drunk anything since this morning, make sure to record it down. Tell them to stay around the residence in case there is no one around when the poison takes effect. Yes, this subordinate understands. Ever since the battle in Jiangning County, Fang Lu had recognized her abilities and admired her from the bottom of his heart. At this time, he had forgotten that she did not have any official position. He was the general. When he heard her calm orders, he naturally obeyed. You go first. I will return to the residence soon. Don't worry about me. Leave a few people behind to take the patients back to the residence. Chu Qingyan nodded to him. Yes. Seeing Fang Lu hastily leave with his men, Chu Qingyan planned to go back. But when she took a step, she suddenly remembered something. She immediately turned to look at the 3 bowls of soy milk on the ground. They had all been finished. And the 3 in front of her were still licking their lips as if they had not had enough. Chu Qingyan's mind exploded. She face-bombed. It's over. These 3 were probably poisoned as well. She did not dare to delay any longer. Taking the 3 with her, she immediately rushed to the residence. However, when she passed through the alley, the scene she saw made her very shocked. There were countless people lying around the residence. There were soldiers, citizens, old and young, all of them crying out in pain. When she appeared, Hualing ran in front of her and put his hands together in prayer. It's a good thing that the Bodhisattva is protecting us. The little princess is fine. Then he said in an aggrieved voice, Little Grand, where did you go? Master couldn't find you and almost had people tear down the residence. He was afraid that something would happen to you. She wanted to say that Fang Lu had sent a message, but she remembered that Fang Lu had already been sent out to do something. She couldn't help changing the topic with a guilty conscience. Is there anything wrong with His Highness? His Highness was busy with work today and did not have time to eat, so he was not poisoned. However, Turin and the other brothers have already been poisoned. Hualing said in a happy and sad voice. Chu Qingyan let out a sigh of relief, but she quickly raised it again. You mean that it's already confirmed that he was poisoned? Hualing quickly signaled for her to speak softly. Little Grand, do you want everyone to know and cause panic? Chu Qingyan immediately covered her mouth. Great Aunt, you should first walk around in front of Master and let Master feel at ease. Hualing urged. For this pair of masters, he had worried quite a bit as a subordinate. Chu Qingyan silently cursed in her heart. Her family's Big Ice Cube was not someone who could not distinguish right from wrong and only cared about love. However, she did have something important to discuss with Big Ice Cube right now. She did not have time to talk to Hualing as she quickly headed to the conference hall. When she entered the conference hall, it was already filled with people. At this time, they were all anxiously giving reports. Your Highness, when we were counting just now, we found that over 300 soldiers were unconscious from being poisoned. Close to 10,000 soldiers have eaten food and are already a bit unconscious. Your Highness, there are more and more citizens coming to seek medical treatment. They have filled several alleys and are spreading far and wide. Chu Qingyan walked in and could feel the heavy atmosphere in the room. The current situation was becoming more and more serious. Fellow soldiers, what suggestions do you have? Xiao Su looked at the person who came in from outside and the dense color in his eyes became a bit lighter. Then he looked away and turned to look at the officers present. Your Highness, the most important thing right now is to find the source of this illness. Not eating or drinking right now is only treating the symptoms and not the root cause. If this continues, the citizens will either be poisoned or starve to death. The entire city will suffer. A soldier surnamed Li said in a pained voice. General Li is right. We can investigate what most people ate today and find the source of the poison. Then we can take precautions to prevent the remaining people from being poisoned. The commander of a battalion agreed. No, this general feels that there is someone planning to poison the people in the city on a large scale. The most important thing right now is to investigate the suspicious people in the city and catch the person who poisoned the people to obtain the antidote. A soldier on the other side refuted. Instantly, everyone was divided into two factions that refuted each other. Chu Qingyan felt her head hurt from all the noise. Do you think that this kind of noise in the market can solve the root cause of the problem? A spring-like water flowed through the middle of the opposing side, bringing a cool breeze that washed away everyone's restlessness. But more than that, everyone felt a layer of cold sweat appear on their backs. Chapter 9:19. Only Xiao Su could silence everyone in an instant. He looked coldly at the crowd. In a time of crisis, all you care about is arguing. You really don't let down the battle robes you're wearing. Everyone couldn't help but lower their heads. This wasn't the time to pursue the matter. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows slightly, his gaze sharp and dignified. General Li, bring people to collect the food and water the soldiers ate and drank today. Bring it to Ethereal for inspection. Yes, General. General Li stepped forward and bowed. General Lin, bring people to search the entire town for suspicious people. If you find anything, bring it to the governor's residence immediately. Yes, General. General Lin also stepped forward to accept the order. Chu Qingyan nodded silently. Big Ice Cube first taught them a lesson, then arranged according to the views of both sides. At the same time, he calmed people down. This method of controlling people was very clever. General of the 1st Battalion, bring the soldiers who aren't poisoned and maintain order outside the residence. Have people take care of the poisoned civilians and do the work of calming the unpoisoned civilians to prevent a riot. Jean Exon, go to the city tower now and strengthen the defense. Prevent people from using this opportunity to attack the city. Xiao Su gave a series of orders. Everyone held their breaths as they received the orders. No one dared to say anything. Because these orders took into account the overall situation and considered all aspects, no one had any objections. Chu Qingyan's gaze turned from the people in the room to the person behind the table. She didn't know why, but she faintly felt that Big Ice Cube's voice was different from usual. But he was wearing a mask now, so she couldn't tell what was wrong. She thought to herself, was she thinking too much? After the meeting ended, the soldiers quickly walked out. Now, time was life. If they delayed any longer, there could be 1 or even 10 civilians poisoned. After everyone left and the air in the hall was clear, Chu Qingyan planned to walk in front of him. At this time, footsteps came from outside. Hua Ling held onto the door handle, panting as he said, "Young master, Bai Yutong and the others are poisoned too." Although she had a premonition, Chu Qingyan's heart still trembled when she heard the news. "I know. They drank the soy milk from the tofu stall this morning." She closed her eyes. If she had stopped them earlier, they might not have been poisoned. "Don't worry, we will find a way to save them," Xiao Su said firmly. His words gave Chu Qingyan a boost of motivation. She nodded her head and recalled the reason why she had come to look for him. She immediately stepped forward and said, "Big Ice Cube, I suspect that the Southern Blue people are behind this. I'm worried that they'll take this opportunity to attack the city." I've thought of that as well. Just now, I've already ordered Gao how to bring reinforcements. There are at least 15,000 people in the city right now. If the enemy attacks, it won't be a problem to hold them off for 3 to 5 days. Xiao Su's voice became heavy. He rarely fell into such a passive situation. This feeling was somewhat unfamiliar, but it gave him the excitement of meeting his match. If the Southern Blue people were behind this, then this battle would be even more intense and novel than before. Chu Qingyan nodded her head and continued, Big Ice Cube, I have a suggestion. Let's gather all the doctors in the city and set up a medical team. Their abilities may not be as good as Ethereal and Yenlua's, but at least when necessary, they can help take care of the civilians and soldiers and lessen their burden. Xiao Su agreed and let Hua Ling make the arrangements. After Hua Ling left, Chu Qingyan summoned someone to inquire. When she found out that Ethereal and the others had yet to discover what kind of poison it was, she couldn't help but feel anxious. At this moment, Xiao Su, who was sitting behind the table, swayed slightly. He pursed his lips into a thin line, as if he was restraining something. His brows were deeply furrowed. Chu Qingyan, who was pacing back and forth in the hall, worried about glutinous rice ball and the others, turned her head and saw his expression. She couldn't help but move closer and say in a gentle voice, "Big Ice Cube, don't worry too much. Ethereal and Yenlua's medical skills are among the best in Sichuan. They will definitely find a solution as soon as possible." Xiao Su looked up and gave her a reassuring look. "I know." She nodded, but felt that she couldn't do anything here. She said, "Big Ice Cube, is there anything you need me to do now?" "What is it?" Her eyes lit up with anticipation. "Stay here and don't go anywhere." Xiao Su looked at her gently, but his tone was serious. No one could refute him. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but twitch the corner of her mouth. If it was any other day, she would definitely think that the Big Ice Cube was saying words of love that he didn't even realize. But at this moment, in such an anxious atmosphere, she couldn't wrap her head around it. Was this what he needed her for? But under his serious expression, she couldn't say anything to refute him. "All right, if you want me to accompany you, I'll accompany you." She shrugged and moved a chair to sit beside him. When she got closer, she saw that there was a half-written memorial on his table. He must have put down his pen temporarily when he heard the news of the people being poisoned when he was writing. She was about to ask what was written on the memorial when someone came in to report. Soon, people came in and out of the room. For a long time, she didn't find a chance to talk to him. In the end, she just sat quietly beside him and accompanied him. At this moment, two figures appeared outside the door. Ethereal and Qing Yenluo. "Why are you here together? Is there progress?" Chu Qingyan immediately stood up from her chair. Even Xiao Su looked at them. "Yes, let us have a sip of water first." Cheng Yenluo called out to them the moment she stepped in. But on second thought, she put down her hand in embarrassment. "Forget it, I don't want to die before achieving success." "Titi, what's with the talk about dying?" The atmosphere was lightened by her words. Chu Qingyan spread her hands. "Right now, no one dares to eat or drink anything. Just bear with it for a while. Speaking of drinking water, I'm angry. The person who poisoned us is too vicious. They actually poisoned the Jiangning River. This river is the source of water for the people of Jiangning County. They can't live without it. But they threw the poison into the river, causing the flow of the water to slow down. As a result, everyone who used the water today was poisoned." Cheng Yenluo started to rant as a doctor who couldn't stand the sight of poisoners. "Calm down first. Otherwise, you'll die of thirst before the poison is cured." Chu Qingyan saw her expression and had an idea. She was in the mood to joke with her. Cheng Yenluo immediately stopped talking, but she still looked at Chu Qingyan with an aggrieved expression. "Ethereal, do you know what kind of poison the people were poisoned with?" Xiao Su looked at the reliable Ethereal and asked. Ethereal was as reliable as ever. "The poison is called luosha. This poison comes from Nansong and is very rare. This is also why we only came to this conclusion after studying it for so long." Chapter 920. Luo Sha. Chu Qingyan had never heard of this name before. She was at a loss, but when she heard that the poison came from Nansong, she flared up. Nansong really can't afford to lose. It's just a city that was taken back, and they want to poison us to death. How narrow-minded. On the battlefield, there's nothing you won't do. You can be a gentleman and then a villain. You have a lot to learn in the future, Xiao Su said slowly. She took a deep breath. The battlefield was really cruel. It couldn't be measured by the way she had always believed. "Ethereal, please continue." She nodded at Ethereal. Luosha's poison is a slow-acting poison. It will wait for the poison to enter the 5 viscera and 6 bowels before it will kill. Generally, it will take 2 to 3 days. Although it won't take a person's life very quickly, the poison is extremely tyrannical. If you don't use the right medicine, the poison will spread faster, Kong Ling continued. Are the people outside foaming at the mouth a sign of the poison? Chu Qingyan couldn't help but ask. Cheng Yanluo shook her head. No, they're just symptoms. I've diagnosed them and found that they were poisoned last night and this morning. However, if we don't find the antidote in 2 days, they won't be able to escape the fate of the poison. 2 days was actually very short. Moreover, to brew the antidote for tens of thousands of people, it wasn't just a matter of manpower, but also of material resources. The atmosphere quickly became tense again. Do you have a way to cure the poison? Xiao Su's tone was unusually serious. We found a way to cure the poison. Although Luosha's poison is very strong, the antidote herb is very common. It's a kind of herb called cattail. Cattail grows in damp places and they reproduce very quickly. Basically, if you can find one, you can find a large patch of them. Ethereal's tone was much lighter as he continued. Before coming here, I've consulted with the local doctor. Because it has little medicinal value, very few people would collect it and store it in the pharmacies. However, they provided us with a piece of information. In the depths of the forest 5 miles away, there's a wild cattail. As soon as he said this, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but smile. It's good that there's a place to look. Big Ice Cube, let's send someone to look for that herb. She thought that it would be like the poison in the ice cube, where she would need to search for those exotic flowers and herbs. She couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. Xiao Su's brows relaxed. He said to the ethereal duo, "Today, this prince will send someone to escort you to pick the herbs. Go and come back quickly." It was rare that the two of them didn't see eye to eye with each other. They nodded in agreement and then went to prepare. With the antidote, Chu Qingyan's worries were swept away. Just as she was about to volunteer to escort the ethereal duo, she suddenly heard Big Ice Cube say, "Ian, close the door." Chu Qingyan followed his instructions and closed the door. However, when the noise outside was shut out, she realized why the Big Ice Cube suddenly asked her to close the door. When she turned around to ask, she saw a scarlet stream of blood flowing down from the corner of his mouth. She was immediately stunned. "Big Ice Cube, what's wrong?" Her voice was so flustered and helpless that she didn't know what she was saying. "Don't panic, I'm fine." Xiao Su knew that he had scared her. He wanted to comfort her, but the blood in his mouth didn't seem to stop. He frowned slightly, very dissatisfied with the situation. At this time, Chu Qingyan didn't know how she walked in front of him. She reached out to wipe the corner of his mouth. When she came back to her senses, her hand was already stained with blood. Her fingers trembled and the blood instantly turned cold. What's going on? She just remembered to pick up a handkerchief to help him stop the bleeding, but everything was useless. Xiao Su pressed her hand down. He didn't want her to waste her efforts. He knew his own body best. "I think I might have been poisoned." As soon as he said this, he couldn't help but cough. What kind of poison is so serious? Is it Luosha? But Luosha's symptoms? She was already flustered and couldn't speak coherently. Xiao Su held her hand and transmitted the warmth of his palm to her, indicating that she shouldn't panic. "It should be Luosha. I drank a cup of tea this morning. The water was the same as the water used by the soldiers. When I noticed that something was wrong, it was already too late." "So you used your internal energy to suppress the poison?" When he said this, she had already guessed it. She bit her lip and her voice unconsciously became sobbing. He took a deep breath, as if he was restraining himself. Then he looked at her eyes gently and said slowly, "Ian, you know, anyone in this city can fall, but I can't. But Big Ice Cube, if he can't suppress the poison, it will cause the poison to spread faster in his body. Do you know that?" She shook her head. Her voice was choked with sobs, but she still tried to lower her voice. She was afraid that people would hear and panic. Since Big Ice Cube chose to do this, then she couldn't let him fail. "But there's no other way, right? Xiao Su gently rubbed the back of her hand, comforting her emotions. He didn't care about the smell of rust and blood in his throat. Chu Qingyan took a deep breath and looked at him without saying a word. I am their faith, their pillar, their leader, so I can't fall. I can only stabilize the situation and let them know that their faith, pillar, and leader is still standing. Only then will they have the confidence to fight against this disaster. Xiao Su said as his lips hooked up. It was like a plum blossom under the spring snow, cold and beautiful. Although she didn't agree with what he did, she had to admit that there was no other way. Big Ice Cube, my heart aches for you. At the same time, I hate myself for being useless. She leaned over and hugged him. She closed her eyes and her face was filled with pain. You being by my side is my biggest motivation. Xiao Su said with a faint smile. Big Ice Cube, don't comfort me. She quickly straightened up and the pain on her face disappeared as if it never existed. Now, I'll let Ethereal take a look at you. Don't interfere with what happens next. Her voice was firm and resolute. Xiao Su couldn't help but obediently shut his mouth. It could also be said that what he said just now had consumed a lot of his energy. Right now, it was time for him to rest. Soon Ethereal was called in. When he heard Chu Qingyan's explanation, he couldn't hide his shock and immediately went forward to take her pulse. His lips were tightly pursed. When he withdrew his hand, he didn't care about seniority and stared at her with raised eyebrows. Master, you're too reckless. This poison can't be suppressed by force. Now, it has already invaded your internal organs. This subordinate will prescribe you a medicine to temporarily control the poison. But if you don't get the antidote within a day then, at this point, Kongling couldn't continue. She couldn't help but turn her back. Chu Qingyan heard this and clenched her fists. Her face was pale and bloodless. Chapter 9:21. Compared to Chu Qingyan and Ethereal's depressed and worried mood, the person involved was like an outsider, seemingly not taking it to heart. Although his voice was a little weak, it was still as indifferent and calm as usual. Ethereal, get someone to boil the medicine. Don't let this leak out. Yes, master. Ethereal did not dare to delay this illness and immediately left. When only the two of them were left in the room, Chu Qingyan walked forward and helped him wipe the bloodstains on his body. Her expression was so calm that it was as if nothing had happened. Seeing her sudden silence, Xiao Su lowered his eyes and said in a low voice, Ian, have you heard of the saying, good people don't last long, but scourges live for 1,000 years? I'm not good enough, and my hands are stained with the blood of countless people. I'm not a good person, so I won't allow you to say that. You're not a scourge. You'll definitely live to 100 years old. Hearing that, Chu Qingyan immediately reached out and covered his lips with her fingers. She shook her head, her eyes misty, and still stubbornly refused to let him continue speaking. He had only wanted to comfort her, but he had made her face full of tears. Xiao Su felt that he was really not suited to coaxing people. After that, he did not say anything, but only held her hand and patted it lightly. Outside the window, the breeze brushed the willows, the leaves rustled, and butterflies fluttered in the forest. The sunlight and white clouds made it seem like a peaceful time. However, the two people in the room, a handsome man and a beautiful woman who should have been the envy of others, held hands and looked at each other in a warm and romantic scene. Their eyes were heavy. After calming herself down, Chu Qingyan squatted in front of him and lifted her head to look at him. Although her voice was still slightly hoarse, it was much better than before. Just listen to her speak. Big Ice Cube, sometimes I feel that the heavens are very unfair to us. It always likes to arrange an especially difficult path for people to walk, but it doesn't ask if they're willing to walk on it. At first, I complained that it lacked love and didn't want to see others live well. But later on, I understood that everything in life has its own meaning. Perhaps if we think this way, our hearts will feel a little better. She spoke tirelessly with a sincere expression. Xiao Su looked at her dotingly, his limpid eyes sparkling as he encouraged her to continue speaking. Therefore, if God wants us to go through some difficult and seemingly insurmountable obstacles in order to obtain happiness, I am willing to accept this challenge. If I win, The harder it is in the beginning, the sweeter it will be in the end. If I unfortunately fail, it is fine. At most, I will live another life and be a hero again in 18 years. When she said that, the corners of her lips curled up slightly. She didn't dare to take another look at the person on the bed. After solemnly entrusting him, she stood up and walked towards the door. Young princess consort. Ethereal suddenly spoke. Chu Qingyan's hand was already on the door. She turned to look at him. Do you have anything else to say? Please help this subordinate take care of Xiao Yan. She's a little reckless. I'm afraid she'll be at a disadvantage. Ethereal looked away unnaturally. However, his voice was filled with eagerness. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but raise the corners of her lips. All right. After leaving the room, Chu Qingyan quickly met up with Cheng Yenluo and the others. She tactfully declined Hua Ling, Fong Lu, and the others' offers. Moreover, she personally selected over 100 soldiers to head out of the city without delay. The moment Chu Qingyan and the others left the city, the Southern Song army received the news. Your Highness the Crown Prince, Shi Xian has already ordered 100 soldiers to head towards the valley. If there are no accidents, they will be able to reach the inescapable net we have set up tonight. A soldier entered the door and reported to the person sitting on the throne. Pang Huang revealed a smile when he heard this. Very good. Your mission is to delay those people. After 2 days, Jiangning County will become a ghost town. When that time comes, this Crown Prince will be able to take it down effortlessly. Your Highness the Crown Prince is right. Many people don't know that those who die from the luosha poison will have their bodies corroded by the poison. Anyone who touches them will also be poisoned. We'll win without a fight. Qing Cheng also smiled, but his smile made everyone's hair stand on end. Mr. Qing Cheng, your idea is very good. After we take down Jiangning County, this Crown Prince will reward you handsomely. Pang Huang was in a very good mood. Many thanks, Your Highness the Crown Prince. Qing Cheng bowed his head in thanks. Pang Huang casually asked, who's the one leading the soldiers to gather the herbs? It's said that it's a youth named Chu Yan. The soldier thought carefully before replying. Chapter 922. Chu Yan. Pang Huang immediately sat up straight. It seemed like he hadn't heard this name in a long time. Now that he heard someone say it, an indescribable feeling flowed through his heart. Yes, Your Highness the Crown Prince. She's leading around 100 soldiers to the valley. I heard that she's very eloquent and intelligent. The soldier didn't notice the change in his Crown Prince's tone and continued to report. Not only was she eloquent, but she was also fickle. He was even more aware of her cleverness. But he didn't expect her to lead the troops alone. Your Highness the Crown Prince, I heard that this person was the main reason our army lost Jiangning County. She can't be left alive to avoid future trouble, Qing Cheng immediately suggested. Anyone who could affect the overall situation had to be eliminated. After saying this, Qing Cheng thought he would receive the Crown Prince's praise as usual, but he didn't expect the Crown Prince's cold gaze to fall on him. Qing Cheng shivered, but he didn't know what he said wrong. Could it be that His Highness had other plans? Pang Huang withdrew the pressure he had just released. He stood up and said to everyone in the room, this Crown Prince will take over the mission of surrounding the Sichuan soldiers. It's been a while since I've stretched my muscles, so this Crown Prince's hands are itching. He stood ramrod straight and smiled like a spring breeze, as if he was nothing more than a noble young master who was suddenly in the mood to go on a spring hunt. The people present didn't know why their master had suddenly changed his mind, but they were already used to this temperamental master, so they all bowed their heads and obeyed. Chu Yan, do you still remember how you humiliated me half a year ago? This time, I'm going to get back at you with interest. The corners of his lips curled up, but it was hard to tell if it was a happy or sinister smile. At this time, Chu Qingyan sat on the back of a horse and couldn't help sneezing. Cheng Yenluo turned to look at her. Did you catch a cold? No, it's probably some dark person secretly cursing me behind my back. Chu Qingyan waved her hand indifferently and focused on the road in front of her. Cheng Yenluo chuckled. You can still crack jokes at a time like this. I thought you had already fallen into a state of panic and couldn't extricate yourself. Chu Qingyan knew what she meant. She laughed self-deprecatingly. In this world, there are many things that happen so suddenly that people are helpless. But what can we do? You have to live your life as usual. You have to work hard to find the antidote. The antidote won't fall just because you complain or feel sorry for yourself. It was just like if you were bitten by a dog, you couldn't bite back. If the heavens don't treat us well, we'll go and complain to the heavens. I'm not afraid of being struck by lightning, but I don't want to waste time on this. Hearing these helpless words, Qing Yanluo sympathized with the young couple. The hardships they had gone through could be written into a storybook. You're right. We have to live positively. We won't give up until the last moment. You don't have to worry. As long as we find the herbs, we'll immediately bring them back and boil them for everyone to drink. The poison will be cured, and the crisis will naturally be resolved. Qing Yanluo's usual sharp tongue was gone. She had transformed into a kind elder sister, sincerely cheering for her. At this moment, a neighing sound came from behind the horse. Whoosh whoosh, listen, even Xiao is cheering for you. Qing Yanluo couldn't help but laugh. Chu Qingyan laughed as well. Because Shuawa cake and the other two had been poisoned, Xiao was by her side. It had been lazy recently and was unwilling to spread its wings to fly, so it rode with her on the same horse. At first, the horse was very afraid of Xiao. It took a long time before it could barely ignore the fierce alien on its back. Little brother Chu, there are two paths ahead. The one on the left is relatively easier to travel, but we'll have to go around a mountain on the way. It'll take more time to reach our destination. The one on the right will save us some time, but I heard that mountain snakes and wild beasts often appear on this path. It's very dangerous and difficult to travel. The man who led the way pointed at the two paths in front of them and explained. Then which path should we take? Qing Yanluo looked at the person beside her. Chu Qingyan made a prompt decision. There's no need to choose this path. We'll take the one on the right. To her, time was of the essence. What? You're taking such a risk? It'll only take us half a day if we take the left path. We'll still be able to make it back to the city in time. The man who led the way panicked and hurriedly explained. Although that was true, the extra half a day might cost Xiao Su his life. But Xiao Su's poisoning couldn't be told to outsiders. Chu Qingyan and Qing Yanluo were bitter but couldn't say anything. When the man saw that Chu Qingyan didn't seem to have changed her mind, he immediately stopped his horse and waved at her. I can't go to my death with you. I have elders and children to take care of. How about this? I'll tell you the path clearly and you can memorize it. I won't go with you. As soon as she finished speaking, the man hurriedly explained everything and turned his horse around, preparing to return. However, without Chu Qingyan's orders, the soldiers behind him immediately drew their weapons and stopped him. When the man saw the sharp blades, he was so frightened that his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. How can you do this? We're also going to save the people of Jiangning County. Qing Yanluo was cut off by Chu Qingyan before she could finish her sentence. Let him go. We won't force him. Chu Qingyan raised her hand, and the soldiers who were blocking the way retreated. The man who led the way immediately urged his horse to leave in a hurry. I've never seen such an ungrateful person. Who was it that saved them from danger? Who was it that protected them from being violated? Qing Yanluo's resentment had yet to subside, and she continued to rant and rave. Yanluo, not everyone can put their country and country first in their hearts. Some people will succumb to the fear in their hearts. We can't be too harsh on others, or we'll be the ones suffering. Right now, it's more important for us to get down to business. Chu Qingyan immediately gave the order to head to the right. Qing Yanluo glared hatefully in the direction the man had left. Without another word, she urged her horse to catch up with the people in front of her. Meanwhile, in the prefectural governor's estate, Xiao Su slowly woke up after the initial drug stupor. Ian. He opened his eyes with difficulty and called out. At this moment, a cup of water was handed to him. He drank a few mouthfuls before he could barely make out the person standing in front of him. He couldn't help but frown. Where's Ian? The cool water moistened his throat, and his voice wasn't as dry and hoarse as before. Ethereal lowered her eyes and muttered softly, "Young master, she went to the valley with Yen Luo to gather herbs." Xiao Su closed his eyes and sighed softly. In fact, he already knew the answer when he saw that the person in the room was ethereal and not the little fellow. He suddenly coughed lightly, and fresh blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth. Chapter 923. Master, you can't have any mood swings. Otherwise, even this subordinate's medicine won't be able to suppress the Luo Sha poison. Ethereal saw this and immediately reminded him anxiously. It's fine. I know my own body well. The poison won't act up so easily. Xiao Su closed his eyes to stabilize his emotions before slowly opening them again. How long have they been gone? He asked faintly. Seeing that his master's mood was fine, Ethereal sighed in relief, but he didn't dare to let his guard down. It's been more than 2 hours. Originally, you would only wake up after 4 hours. I didn't expect Master to wake up so early. His master's body had always been stronger than ordinary people. His injuries usually healed faster than ordinary people. Perhaps the poison really wouldn't spread so easily. How's the city? The number of poisoned people has increased by a few dozen. Fortunately, Fong Lu informed us in time. Now, the people don't dare to use the water from Jiangning River. The number of poisoned people has been controlled. As for the city defense, Jean Xian sent news that everything is calm and no enemy troops have been detected. Knowing that his master was worried about these things, Ethereal immediately told him everything without missing a word. After hearing this, Xiao Su's expression eased a little. If there were no accidents, they should be able to hold on until the little fellow and the others return. Seeing this, Ethereal relaxed a little. After thinking for a while, he opened the topic. Master, you don't have to worry. Although the poison is fierce this time, the antidote is very simple. As long as you get the herbs, all problems will be solved. Xiao Su nodded slightly. Kong Ling thought that if he talked about some relaxing topics, perhaps his master would not be so worried, so he continued to speak. Actually, speaking of which, the person who poisoned us is also quite foolish. They wanted to destroy our city, yet they chose such a simple poison as the antidote. Although the toxicity of this poison is extremely strong, as long as we send people to search for it, we will be able to detoxify it in less than 2 days. At that time, their efforts will be in vain. At this point, someone knocked on the door. Ethereal walked over. When he returned, he had a bowl of medicine in his hand. Master, this medicine has the effect of calming the nerves. It has the effect of controlling the poison in your body. I will put it at the head of your bed. You can drink it when it's cold. I will go and treat a few of the newly poisoned people. Seeing that his master more or less listened to what he just said, Ethereal put down the medicine and left. When the door was closed again, Xiao Su reached for the bowl. Just as he was about to drink it, his hand suddenly. Choose a simple poison? 2 days? Failure at the end? Oh no, this is a trick to lure the enemy. Ah Yen is in danger. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows and was about to call for help. Men. Just as he spoke, the blood in his chest surged, and he spat out a mouthful of black blood. The bowl in his hand to him. He didn't have the strength to speak again. He could only watch as the bed veil above his head moved further and further away from him. Then he fell into the bedding. He wanted to raise his arm, but all his senses were instantly taken away. Darkness enveloped him, and even the last bit of whiteness in his eyes disappeared. The corners of his mouth curled into a bitter smile. Was it too late? Ian, Chu Qingyan, who was walking among the jagged rocks, suddenly turned around. Her heart was thumping, and she suddenly felt uneasy. What's wrong? Cheng Yenluo raised her eyebrows and asked when she saw her suddenly stop. I think I heard someone call me just now. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips. I was right beside you. Why didn't I hear it? Are you having too much on your mind that you're hallucinating? Cheng Yenluo looked around and gave her a helpless look. Chu Qingyan shook her head. Her calm smile returned to her face. Maybe it's as you said. You can prescribe me some medicine later. Cheng Yenluo agreed readily. All right, it's almost night. Let's quickly pass through this mountain. Chu Qingyan instructed the soldiers behind her. Wild beasts roamed at night. At the same time, it was very cold in the mountains. It was very unfavorable for light riders like them who didn't prepare anything to keep out the cold. Chu Qingyan ordered everyone to light up torches. Although this would make them a bigger target, most animals were afraid of fire. What's more, there were so many of them on this trip. If they had not encountered a group of beasts, they would not have been attacked. However, she wasn't worried about the ferocity of the wild beasts. She was worried that their appearance would delay their journey. It was a very difficult journey for them. They were on tenterhooks the entire night. Fortunately, the god of luck was on their side. Apart from a few small rabbits, they passed through safely. When the first rays of the morning sun appeared, they walked out of the forest and headed toward another mountain. Their clothes were soaked with dew and stuck to their bodies. It was bone-chilling. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips. She didn't show her discomfort. She seriously identified the direction. Didn't that person say that after passing through this mountain, we'll reach a junction and turn left? After that, we'll go up the mountain and walk for another hour to see the valley? We've been circling around for almost 2 hours. Why haven't we even seen the shadow of the valley? Cheng Yanluo dismounted and plucked grass. She looked very impatient. At this time, the sun had risen. The sunlight was a little glaring. Chu Qingyan put her hand on her forehead and looked around. There shouldn't be a problem with the location. Maybe we haven't found the right direction to go to the valley. This place was full of tall trees and overgrown with weeds. There were few traces of humans. If they weren't careful, they could get lost here. Little brother Chu, we've found the valley. It's just behind the back of the mountain. A soldier ran over, looking very happy. Chu Qingyan and Cheng Yanluo looked at each other and smiled. She immediately ordered, "Leave 10 men to watch the horses. The rest of you, carry the baskets and follow me." The road ahead was difficult, so she decided to abandon the horses. At this time, it was like they had passed through the endless darkness and finally saw the dawn. Everyone was in high spirits and didn't look tired at all. When Chu Qingyan's group entered the valley, the people standing at the top of the mountain looked down and saw everything. "Your Highness, in another moment, they will enter our encirclement. Should we have the soldiers make a move?" The leading general asked. Pang Huang raised his hand to stop him. "No, don't act rashly. This prince will deal with this old friend later." Pang Huang crossed his hands behind his back and his eyes fell onto the red-clothed youth leading the group. "Chu Qingyan, when you see this prince later, will you be very surprised? Catching people off guard, this is what you taught me in the past. Now I'm just returning it to you." His lips curled into a meaningful smile. Chapter 9:24. When the wind blew, the dew rolled on the branches and leaves. Soon, it evaporated under the sun. By the time Chu Qingyan led her men into the valley, the moisture on her body had already dried off. However, the warmth from her body could not reach her heart. She held the portrait of the cattail in her hand and carefully observed it. She would rather kill the wrong person than let the wrong person go. Hundreds of people spread out and surrounded the entire valley, searching in full swing. "Did you find it?" Someone asked from afar. Such a conversation could be heard from time to time. As the sun moved, Chu Qingyan's forehead was covered in sweat. She subconsciously clenched her fists even tighter. The image of the cattail was deeply imprinted in her mind. She didn't even have time to take a sip of water as she immersed herself in the search. The valley was so big that she wished she had Sun Wukong's fiery golden eyes to see everything. However, she was also afraid that the cattail was nowhere to be found. "Take a break. You've been in a tense state since yesterday. If you continue like this, you won't be able to save anyone but yourself." Cheng Yanluo couldn't stand it anymore. She took the water bottle from her waist and threw it at her, forcing her to drink it. Chu Qingyan took a big gulp, and she felt her mind clear up. At this moment, Cheng Yanluo began to guide her patiently. "Actually, you don't have to worry. As long as we can find a stalk of cattail, we can find a large patch. They're like dandelions. Wherever the seeds fall, they'll take root and sprout. They have a strong vitality and reproductive ability, so they grow in clusters. Chu Qingyan nodded in agreement. At this moment, she needed to be convinced to calm down. Otherwise, she would have driven herself crazy before she found the cattail. All right, rest for 15 minutes before we continue the search. You have to believe in yourself and in us. Cheng Yenluo patted her shoulder and pushed her to a shady spot. She wanted to express that she was fine and that she could continue, but Cheng Yenluo was adamant. She could only agree and rest obediently. After some time, a soldier suddenly exclaimed, "I found it! I found the cattail!" As soon as he said that, Chu Qingyan and Cheng Yenluo looked at each other in surprise and joy and immediately ran over. Cheng Yenluo took the green, fan-shaped blade of grass from the soldier's hand. With just one look, she concluded happily, "This is cattail grass. Not only this one, but the whole area in front of us is full of them." Cheng Yenluo's affirmation put Chu Qingyan's heart at ease. She took the dandelion hair as if she was holding a fragile gem. Her eyes sparkled and she was speechless for a moment. This is called wearing out iron shoes in a fruitless search, only to find it by chance. Cheng Yenluo sighed and patted her shoulder. Her tone was full of joy as she looked at the vast expanse of green in front of her. Chu Qingyan nodded heavily. She didn't have time to reply and waved her hand to order, "Everyone, hurry up and pick these cattail grass. We don't have much time left." At the bottom of the valley, the crowd responded with joy and excitement. Chu Qingyan didn't stay idle either. She squatted down and pulled out the cattail grass and placed it in the basket behind her. At the bottom of the valley, there was a jubilant scene of harvesting. At the top of the valley, there was a large number of soldiers solemnly watching the peaceful scene below. "Your Highness the Crown Prince, they're already within our encirclement. Shouldn't we make a move?" The commander at the side asked cautiously. Ever since the Sichuan soldiers appeared in the valley, His Highness the Crown Prince had been smiling ambiguously. His expression was unfathomable. After waiting for so long, the Crown Prince didn't say anything. He couldn't help but muster up the courage to ask. Pang Huang's gaze was locked on the people below. He said indifferently, "Wait a little longer." "What's the Crown Prince's intention?" The commander was puzzled. If it were any other day, Pang Huang wouldn't be willing to answer his subordinate's occasional question. But at this moment, with the warm sun and gentle breeze, he was in the mood to talk. "Do you think there's anything more interesting than personally crushing a person's hope? This Crown Prince wants them to experience the sadness and despair of not being able to send the herbs they've painstakingly picked to Jiangning County." Pang Huang said each word with a smile, but it made the people bathed in the sun feel a cold wind blow from behind them. The commander swallowed with difficulty and agreed, "When using troops, attacking the heart is the best. It's Your Highness the Crown Prince who is the best strategist, taking the hearts of people into consideration." Pang Huang chuckled, but his voice was filled with iron. "Commander Xiao, you're thinking too much. This Crown Prince just doesn't want a certain person down there to have an easy time." Captain Xiao was stunned for a moment. Then he smiled and secretly wiped the sweat off his face behind Pang Huang's back. The Crown Prince was indeed as unpredictable as the rumors said. He often did things according to his preferences. Otherwise, he wouldn't have treated the war between the two countries as a child's play. Pang Huang looked down from above. His eyes locked onto Chu Qingyan, who was focused on picking herbs. He narrowed his eyes and looked over her without leaving a trace. The few times he had seen her before, she always had a carefree or quick-witted appearance. He thought that this kind of woman was simple-minded and didn't know how to worry, but the moment she stepped into the valley, he saw the unconcealable anxiety in her eyes. Her thin eyebrows knitted together, making him feel a kind of emotion called worry. Chapter 9:25. The mountain wind whistled, making it hard to tell whether it was the sound of blades clashing or the sound of blades clashing. However, humans were born with a natural sense of danger. Over 100 soldiers lit up their weapons and faced their surroundings. They retreated step by step, gathering together. "Since you're here, don't hide anymore. Reveal your identity openly. The moment she heard the voice, Chu Qingyan's heart skipped a beat. However, she quickly calmed down. She raised her voice. Her voice was crisp and clear, accompanied by the whistling of the mountain wind. It had an independent and clear beauty to it. Intentionally or unintentionally, her voice was lowered, and her aura was released. Sometimes, gaining the upper hand by a show of strength could stabilize one's position. It would prevent them from losing their footing when they were outnumbered and lacking confidence. As Chu Qingyan's voice fell, the sound of metal rings clanging against each other could be heard. Following that, layers and layers of soldiers appeared around the valley like bamboo shoots after a rain. They held long spears in their hands, and their auras were imposing. They looked at them with excited and bloodthirsty expressions. In an instant, a heavy darkness surrounded the group. Sweeping her eyes over their familiar military uniforms, Chu Qingyan softly called out, "Nan Song." In this situation, it seems a bit strange to say long time no see. However, this crown prince feels that in this kind of scene where old friends meet, this greeting can't be missing. Chu Qingyan, long time no see. Just as Chu Qingyan was observing the surrounding terrain and the soldiers surrounding them, a voice came from the mountain valley's exit. The tone was very leisurely and carefree. As soon as the voice came out, it was blown away by the mountain wind, making it impossible to recognize the original voice. At this time, if it was in a different place, it would definitely make people think that it was some family's young master coming out for a walk and meeting an old friend. Unfortunately, this place wasn't a place where people would be in the mood to sing a song or recite a poem. Chu Qingyan turned around and looked towards the mountain valley's exit. A blue figure walked out unhurriedly from the path that Nan Songbing had opened up. Cloud patterns dyed his sleeves and extended to the hem of his long gown. His gown fluttered in the wind, giving off a natural and unrestrained feeling. However, when Chu Qingyan got used to the light at the exit and saw the person's face, she sucked in a breath of cold air. His skin was bronze-colored, and his figure was tall and burly. His phoenix eyes were majestic, and just by standing there without moving, he gave off an awe-inspiring aura. She was stunned. This person was actually Pang Huang, the southern blue crown prince who she had fought twice in the Fuli mountain range half a year ago. He was also the commander of the southern blue army. Should I be glad or unlucky that my opponent is actually you? Chu Qingyan curled her lips into a smile, as if she was teasing him, but also as if she was mocking herself. Other than a moment of surprise, there was no other expression on her face. Pang Huang looked at her from 10 steps away. From afar, she looked like a scenery, but up close, she was like a painting. She had the same red gown, the same hairstyle, and the same appearance. However, he didn't know why, but he felt that she had changed a lot in this short half a year. It was just that it was hard to see with his eyes. Pang Huang looked into her bright and clear eyes, and his gaze flickered. I don't know if I should be glad or unlucky. You don't seem to be too happy to see me. Do you think that at this moment, when two armies are facing each other and drawing their swords, I'd be happy to see you? Chu Qingyan laughed lightly, but the smile on her lips didn't reach her eyes. Pang Huang pondered for a moment. Just when everyone thought that he was thinking of some bad idea, they all went on guard. However, they heard him say, "Do you mean that if we were in a place where there are no outsiders, you'd be willing to sit down and chat with me? You think too highly of yourself." Cheng Yenluo impatiently glared at the person in front of her. What do you want? If you want to kill or chop, just say the word and we'll accompany you. Don't block our way with your burly appearance and talk about romance. I'm sorry, but we don't have time for that. Cheng Yenluo's words greatly displeased the soldiers behind Pang Huang. They were about to raise their swords at her, but Pang Huang raised his hand to stop them. They reluctantly retreated. At this moment, Pang Huang's gaze landed on Cheng Yenluo. He smiled. I thought that we Nansong people were valiant, while the Sichuan people were thin and slender. Today, I see that your country isn't just like that. I'll take that as a compliment. I won't stand on ceremony and accept it. However, that's a separate matter. I won't be fooled by your flowery words. Cheng Yenluo snorted and retorted sarcastically. Cheng Yanlua's scolding was truly satisfying. However, Chu Qingyan quickly retracted her smile and said with a cold gaze, "Prince of Nansong, let's not beat around the bush. Were you the one who poisoned Jiangning County?" "That's right." Pang Huang readily agreed. "Although the poison you used is extremely potent, the antidote is quite common. In fact, your goal isn't just to obtain Jiangning County. Am I right?" Chu Qingyan's tone was as calm as ever. Pang Huang nodded and said without hesitation, "That's right. Not only do I want Jiangning County, but I also want Xiao Su's life." Chu Qingyan's gaze hardened. "So, the poison is potent but the herbs aren't rare. You wanted to set up a formation in the valley to lure us in? You're half right." This formation was actually set up for Xiao Su. Pang Huang shook his head and said regretfully, "Unfortunately, the person who came wasn't him, but you. Therefore, you'll die in his place." Although his tone was regretful, his expression didn't betray his feelings. Instead, Pang Huang looked at her with great interest, as if he was looking at a delicious piece of meat. Chu Qingyan felt a chill run down her spine at her own thoughts. However, according to Pang Huang's plan, even if the big ice cube didn't come, he would still die in Jiangning County before he could wait for the antidote. It was as if they were already prey on the chopping block and didn't need to waste any effort to resist this lousy scheme. Pang Huang was extremely cooperative and spoke tirelessly. "However, it doesn't matter who comes, because even the best doctor in Sichuan wouldn't know that once the luosha poison flares up, it will infect everyone who touches him. When that happens, 1 will spread to 10, 10 will spread to 100. Not only Xiao Su, but the entire Jiangning County will be hard-pressed to escape." When Pang Huang said this, he glanced over Chu Qingyan, Cheng Yanluo, and the others' expressions of shock and disbelief. The corners of his mouth curled up as he continued to speak faintly. "After 3 or 4 days, we won't even need to send out an army to easily take back Jiangning County. At that time, without Xiao Su as the final barrier, the entire Sichuan will be as easy as pie. Sooner or later, all of Sichuan will be swallowed up by my southern blue." "Pang Huang, do you think the enemy's words can be trusted on the battlefield?" Regardless of whether it was true or false, Chu Qingyan clenched her fists and did her best to appear as calm as possible. This was because her current behavior would directly affect the hearts of the 100 soldiers present. "Believe it or not, I don't like to force people to do things." Pang Huang smiled indifferently. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips even tighter. Chapter 926. She had once heard Big Ice Cube's evaluation of Pang Huang. This person was capable of doing anything. From his cold-blooded treatment of his own brothers, it was enough to see that this person was ruthless and merciless. In order to achieve his goals, he would do anything. In order to seize a city, he could be ruthless and use the lives of a city's people in exchange for victory. Perhaps he didn't even need to do so, but in order to save trouble, he indifferently chose the most direct and at the same time, the cruelest method. "Even if what you said is true, so what?" Chu Qingyan pulled herself together. While talking to him, she looked around, not letting go of any opportunity that could be used. Beside her, Yan Luo had already begun to doubt whether Rasha would harm others, not to mention whether the soldiers she brought with her would be swayed by him. She had to make the best use of her time. She would not give up until the last moment. Pang Huang was very surprised by her performance. He knew that she clearly knew that what he said was true, but at this moment, in order to stabilize the morale of the soldiers, she didn't show any trace of panic. Instead, she looked around vigilantly, like a hibernating cheetah, waiting for the slightest gap to appear and she would jump out. Really interesting. He rarely saw such a tenacious and confident woman. She had aroused a strong interest in his heart. "Very good, you're worthy of being trained by Xiao Su. In the face of danger, I'm afraid many of the soldiers around me can't compare to you." Pang Huang smiled ambiguously and continued, "I admire you very much. Why don't we find a place to talk about old times? If you can make me happy, I'll let you go. How about it? 2 armies are at war, and your country is very interested in talking about anything and everything at this time. So you treat war as child's play? If so, This one is very skeptical of your country's commander-in-chief, Crown Prince Pang's ability. After all, to be able to do this, I think ordinary people can't do it. Chu Qingyan's eyes were full of disdain. As soon as these words came out, the soldiers behind Pang Huang became restless again. Some looked at her angrily, while others secretly glanced at their crown prince. Could it be that he really treated war as child's play? Pang Huang laughed lowly. Chu Qingyan, you want to provoke me and then take advantage of the chaos to kill a bloody path, right? Unfortunately, I won't let you get what you want. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips. Her move was indeed too obvious. She was a little impatient. There are still 6 hours left. If we don't depart now, I'm afraid we won't make it back in time. Cheng Yanluo quietly tugged at her sleeve and reminded her in a low voice. Chu Qingyan nodded as she frowned slightly. Then she looked up at the sun. It was almost noon, and her heart felt like it was being scratched by a cat's claws. She was extremely anxious, but she restrained herself from showing it. Are you in a hurry to go back? Don't you think this mountain is very beautiful? It's perfect for what you Sichuan love to do the most, reciting poems and making couplets? Pang Huang's gaze had been locked on her face. Her every move did not escape his sharp eyes. At this time, seeing her frown, he guessed that she was anxious. But he had some doubts in his heart. According to reason, the poison should be tomorrow, but she had a feeling that she couldn't wait to send the antidote back. Don't tell me you want to recite poems too? I heard that you Southern Blue people look down on us Sichuan scholars the most. Are you trying to make a fool of yourself at this time? Chu Qingyan couldn't help but roll her eyes. She really wanted to directly attack the tiger in front of her. But after considering the strength of both sides, she could only give up on this idea. It was normal to sacrifice oneself in war, but she couldn't let her people make unnecessary sacrifices. Pang Huang didn't care at all about the thorns in her words. He leisurely stood in the same place because he knew that his motionlessness was the best way to restrain her and the people behind her. She was a smart person. She wouldn't choose to strike a stone with an egg at this time. The people present had at least experienced many battles, but they had never seen two armies facing each other like this. They didn't start fighting but slowly wore out time, as if they were competing to see who could last longer. Time slowly passed as the two armies faced each other. While everyone was waiting impatiently, Chu Qingyan's lowered brows suddenly focused. There was a flash of light in her eyes before they returned to normal. Just now, she had been casually replying to Pang Huang's words, but now she took the initiative. Crossing her arms, she looked at him and said, "Your Highness, I heard that you like to make bets with others, and you always win. Is that true? Your information is quite accurate." "That's right, this prince is good at this." After replying, Pang Huang looked over her and gave a chuckle. "Could it be that you're bored right now and want to make a bet with this prince? I, Chu Qingyan, am not a cultured person. Eating, drinking, riding, shooting, and gambling, perhaps I can play a few games. You have more people and I have fewer people. If you don't let me go, I won't be able to leave. Since I'm bored, how about we make a bet?" Chu Qingyan gave a self-deprecating laugh. It was like she was making a life-or-death struggle as she spoke. Pang Huang had been trying to figure out her thoughts the entire time. When he tried to find a topic to talk to her about, she kept drifting away. It could be seen that she was thinking of a countermeasure, but he never thought that she would make this request. Since she wanted to play, then he would play with her. But before this, he had to make it hard for her. "It's not that we can't make a bet, but..." Pang Huang dragged out his words. When he saw her cold expression, his lips curled as he continued, "I have a condition." "You really are interesting, needing a condition to make a bet." The silent Cheng Yanluo on the side finally couldn't take it anymore, but she was stopped by Chu Qingyan. Chu Qingyan looked at him coldly. "What condition? I missed the time when we fought. Unfortunately, there was no clear winner. Now let's fight. If you win, I'll make a bet with you," Pang Huang said. Chu Qingyan narrowed her eyes. "What if you win? Leave Xiao Su and become my aide." Pang Huang smiled. It didn't seem like he was joking. Cheng Yanluo was furious at Pang Huang's shameless boasting. "Prince of Nansong, you're going too far. You want to make a bet with me, so I have a condition. Isn't this what you call returning the favor? It's up to me whether I want to make a bet, and it's up to you whether I want to make a bet. Isn't that fair? Pang Huang shrugged his shoulders nonchalantly, while the soldiers behind him began to clamor and clamor. Chu Qingyan patted Yenluo's shoulder and gave her a look that told her to calm down. Then she turned to look at Pang Huang. Her eyes were as clear as a stream, and her expression was calm. It was as if this was just a friendly exchange between two friends. All right, I'll agree to your condition. Cheng Yenluo was anxious. She wanted to dissuade her, but when she saw Chu Qingyan's determined gaze, she swallowed her words. Young Master Chu is indeed a straightforward person. After you. Pang Huang smiled. Chu Qingyan's mouth twitched as she whispered to Jiang Yi before she walked up. Yenluo, I won't lose. You have to believe me. Cheng Yenluo looked at her back and said firmly in her heart, Little girl, I believe you. Chapter 927. Chu Qingyan walked out of the crowd with a natural and unrestrained appearance. How do you want to compete? 2 out of 3 wins or what? When her voice fell, the soldiers on Pang Huang's side immediately began to discuss. Your Highness, taking down these people is a very simple matter. Why do you want to waste time with them? That's right, maybe this person wants to play some trick. Your Highness, please reconsider. Pang Huang's ears were filled with noisy chatter. Pang Huang's stern gaze swept over everyone. Everyone felt his majesty and did not dare to speak. Do I need you to teach me how to be the crown prince? How about you take my position? Pang Huang's gaze was like a cold arrow. It was clear that he was angry. This general doesn't dare. They had already experienced the crown prince's methods during this time, so they retreated in fear, not saying anything else. Your men don't seem to agree, Chu Qingyan said coldly as she crossed her arms. Pang Huang smiled hearing this. The one competing with you is me, there is no need to care about unimportant people. Then he was silent for a moment before continuing, as long as you can take over 100 moves from me, it will be your win and it will be decided in 1 round. 100 moves? Chu Qingyan looked at him suspiciously. Back in the Fuli mountain range, she had exchanged a few moves with him and knew that his martial arts were very high. But she was personally taught by the ice block, so she wouldn't be too bad. That's right, if you can defeat me within 100 moves, it will be your win. Do you dare accept the challenge? Pang Huang looked at her with a burning gaze. Draw your sword. Chu Qingyan did not hesitate to draw the flexible sword at her waist, using her actions to answer his words. The silver sword could be soft or hard, releasing a dazzling white light under the sun. It shined on her face, showing her determination. Pang Huang gave an appreciative smile and pulled out his own weapon at the same time. Comparing notes, don't go too far. He emphasized. If it was a normal day, he would not say something like this. But the person in front of him made him want to cherish her talent from the start. Chu Qingyan did not respond because she did not dare guarantee that they would stop at that moment. The 2 armies retreated, making space for the 2 of them. One was the southern blue ghost crown prince, while the other was a Sichuan noble youth. Both of them were good-looking, and when they stood together, they were pleasing to the eye. However, at this moment, they were both domineering and arrogant, as if they were on the verge of exploding. Chu Qingyan did not want to waste any more time. Holding her sword horizontally, she quickly attacked Pang Huang. When she first learned leg techniques from 7-star and flowing lightness skill, she had a bold idea, which was to fuse leg techniques and lightness skill together. After she succeeded, she fused them together with her swordsmanship. Therefore, even though her internal energy wasn't the strongest, her swordsmanship was the fastest, and her dodging was second to none. Therefore, when Pang Huang saw her move with such momentum, he was stunned at first. He recalled that she had not used her full strength on the snowy mountain. However, his lips slowly curled up. Chu Yen, how many points of brilliance do you have? Show them all. When speed and swordsmanship were combined, it would result in twice the result with half the effort. When Pang Huang received her first move, he retreated a little, but he did not mind at all. He blocked her sword and used his strength to push it away. Chu Qingyan flipped in midair and waved her sword at him again. She went all out from the start, not to suppress him. She clearly knew that Pang Huang was a troublesome opponent. If she wanted to win, she had to attack him so intensely that he would not have time to react and reveal a flaw. This way, she would be able to seize the opportunity. Pang Huang countered every move, and he had always been in a passive state. In his impression, she was not a radical person, but at this moment, she seemed to be throwing caution to the wind, which made him have a faint guess in his heart. From an outsider's point of view, the two people's swordsmanship was very fast. If one did not have a certain level of martial arts, they would not be able to see the two people's movements. They would only feel that it was very powerful, which made the spectators unable to withstand the momentum and kept retreating. After the two people exchanged a move, Chu Qingyan retreated 2 steps and stood still. She was slightly panting, and at this time, her temples were already wet with sweat. Pang Huang's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. He had fought with so many people, and it was very rare for him to encounter such a seemingly disorderly, yet orderly fighting style. His phoenix eyes were full of power as he stared at the person standing in front of him. Her red clothes made her fair skin look handsome, and the sweat on her cheeks, under the sunlight, sparkled. For a moment, it made him dazed. It was as if he could not see the person in front of him clearly, leaving only a pair of clear eyes, swaying in front of him. The mountain breeze blew, bringing a cool and refreshing feeling. His eyes regained their clarity, and his lips hooked up, as he said with a smile that was not a smile. Chu Qingyan, do you still remember the words I said to you on Fuli Mountain? Chu Qingyan looked at his incomparably tough face and narrowed her eyes, trying to figure out the meaning of his words. I said before, I am a person who cherishes talent. As long as you are willing to leave Xiao, I will give you endless glory and wealth. Pang Huang stared at her as he said word by word, showing that he was serious. I will guarantee that you will not have to worry about food and clothing for the rest of your life, and endless glory and wealth. These words made Chu Qingyan recall that he had said the same thing to her before. Chu Qingyan was stunned by his persistence, but then she raised her eyebrows and lightly snorted at him. I am not a fickle person. What answer I gave you back then, it will still be the same answer today. She did not want to waste any more words. Just now, she had already caught the flaw in his moves, and without any explanation, she swung her sword forward. After being rejected by her again, Pang Huang was a little jealous of Xiao. He actually had such a loyal subordinate by his side. When she attacked, he did not show any mercy. He raised his inner energy and stopped fighting her. She did not expect Pang Huang to suddenly change his moves, and she immediately changed her attack. Could it be that he had been holding back just now, and was saving up his strength to fight against her now? Pang Huang saw that she was a little weak, and his eyes were filled with arrogance as he mercilessly slashed at her. At this moment, even Qing Yenluo, who was watching from the sidelines, could see that Chu Qingyan was gradually at a disadvantage, and her strength was falling short of her desire. She could not help but breathe as she stared at the two of them. She was anxious but had nowhere to vent her anxiety. In the blink of an eye, Pang Huang's fierce attack was right in front of her. She clenched the sword in her hand, and the sword light in front of her seemed to disappear. What appeared was the scenes she had experienced in the past few years. Laughter, anger, life and death. At this moment, if she retreated, she could still save her life, but the result would be her defeat. If she advanced, she would either fight for a chance or lose her life. However, she had no way out. Reality did not allow her to drag out an ignoble existence, because she still had someone to protect. Chapter 9:28. She raised her sword and went forward. She gave it her all, not leaving any leeway. Once a person reached a dead end, the potential hidden in their body would be limitless. She always believed in it. Pang Huang already had victory in his hands. He thought that she would choose to retreat under such a dense and powerful attack. But when he saw the determination in her eyes, he couldn't help but be stunned. Smart people, from the perspective of seeking advantages and avoiding disadvantages, would not choose such a risky method. In his opinion, Chu Qingyan wasn't a stupid person. But when he met her cold and firm gaze, a sentence suddenly appeared in his heart, and that was that this person couldn't be treated like an ordinary person. Chu Qingyan, Xishuan and those people, are they really worth it for you to risk everything and cut off your path of retreat? The moment he waved his sword to kill, he suddenly became distracted. It was at this moment. Chu Qingyan stared at the place where he had revealed a flaw. Pang Huang came back to his senses, squinted his eyes, and received her sword move. Then he channeled his inner strength and waved it away. The strong airflow caused everyone to unconsciously close their eyes. When they opened their eyes again, the two people were standing 5 to 6 steps away from each other. Whether it was the Sichuan soldiers or the Southern Song soldiers, they all heaved a sigh of relief. The feeling of suffocation just now was like being choked by someone, unable to move. At this moment, the pressure on their bodies suddenly disappeared. It shouldn't be considered intact. Chu Qingyan looked at her own cracked, flexible sword. Her gaze was cold, concealing the astonishment in her heart. Just now, when the two people's swords were facing each other, she seemed to feel that the opponent's moves had weakened. Was it unintentional, or was it intentional? At this moment, she couldn't help but look at him. Standing under the sun, the person's facial features were strong, but at this moment his blue clothes were fluttering, and there was a faint smile on his face. At this moment, it gave people the illusion of being flirtatious. Pang Huang looked at the chipped sword in his hand and threw it away without any reluctance. His tone was leisurely as he said, "You win." Chu Qingyan was about to ask if he wanted to continue, but he took the initiative to speak first. She looked at him dumbfoundedly, her eyes filled with doubt. "Including that move just now, you've already exchanged over 100 moves with me. According to the rules, I've lost." Pang Huang looked at her in a relaxed manner. He wasn't a sore loser, so he admitted it without any burden. On the contrary, the soldiers behind him were somewhat indignant. They felt that their crown prince must have shown her mercy. Otherwise, with their crown prince's strength, she would have been defeated in a matter of minutes. Chu Qingyan was stunned. It turned out that they had already exchanged over 100 moves. She had been too focused just now and had forgotten to count. After she let out a sigh of relief, she felt a fishy taste in her throat. She frowned slightly and circulated her qi to suppress it. She smiled. She had finally gotten this opportunity. "Thank you for letting me win." She put away her sword and cupped her hands in return. Cheng Yenluo, who was trembling with fear, immediately went up to him. She said with both joy and fear, "Chu Yen, you're amazing. Do you know that I'm almost scared to death? If anything happens to you, how am I going to explain it to my family?" "It's fine. I already told you to believe me." Chu Qingyan returned a smile. Pang Huang sneered at her. "Don't be happy too early. You won this opportunity, but it doesn't mean you can win against me. In all these years, I've never lost a bet to anyone." Chu Qingyan smiled faintly. "Your Highness, I believe that those who have bet with you in the past all have the mentality of losing. Why is that? Because commoners don't fight with officials, and officials don't fight with nobles. This has been an unspoken rule since ancient times. Think about it, if you were to play chess with your imperial father, would you win or lose?" Because of her words, Pang Huang couldn't hold back his smile. "Is that so? It seems like you know a lot about it." "Oh no. I forgot that you guys don't know how to play chess." Chu Qingyan shrugged, looking as if she had just remembered. This caused the southern blue soldiers to glare at her. The corners of Pang Huang's eyes couldn't help but twitch. Although he didn't want to admit her fallacious reasoning, it still sounded reasonable. However, if he admitted it, he would feel uncomfortable. "Less nonsense. What do you want to bet?" Pang Huang couldn't wait for her to end this topic. Otherwise, if she continued, he would feel like he was asking for humiliation. Chu Qingyan spread her hands and stopped the topic. She looked over and said, "Prince of Nansong, the bet I want to make with you is very simple." "I'd like to hear the details." Pang Huang said. "Let's bet on whether or not I can send the cattail grass back to Jiangning County under your nose." Chu Qingyan smiled faintly. "Do you dare to bet?" When these words came out, not only the southern blue soldiers, but even her own people couldn't hide their surprise and ridiculousness. Beside her, Qing Yanlua's eyes widened. She couldn't help but tug at her sleeve and whisper, "Little girl, are you crazy?" If they could do it, they wouldn't be here talking nonsense with these southern blue soldiers. Chu Qingyan patted the back of her hand comfortingly and replied, "Don't worry, I know what I'm doing." Cheng Yanluo received her confidence. Although she was puzzled, she didn't ask any more questions. At this time, the only thing she could do was to trust her companions. Pang Huang took a while to digest the words he heard. However, he still looked at Chu Qingyan with a suspicious gaze. He said with a smile that wasn't a smile, "Are you sure you want to bet with this? Are you sure you don't want to lose to me? Are you sure you don't really want to rely on me?" These three confirmations made the soldiers behind him laugh and scrupulously. The other party's mocking and probing made the soldiers on her side angry, but they didn't dare to say anything. They were also a little shaken and began to doubt Chu Qingyan's motives. However, this didn't affect Chu Qingyan. Her expression was still calm, and her tone was provocative as she said, "Then, does your highness dare to accept or not?" Pang Huang slightly frowned because of her calmness. However, no matter how he thought about it, he couldn't figure out how she could win the bet. He also couldn't figure out why she would make such an obvious bet. His intuition told him that there was something fishy going on. Logically, he should refuse. However, he didn't know why, but he wanted to see how she would end up. Sometimes, curiosity killed the cat. Curiosity was the first feeling a person would have when they were close to a stranger. Only with this feeling would they want to know more about that person. Therefore, when the overall situation was set, Pang Huang suddenly looked back and realized that he was interested in Chu Qingyan from the start. That was why things got out of hand later. "All right." Pang Huang no longer hesitated and agreed with a smile, "I look forward to your performance." Chu Qingyan's eyes sparkled. "Good. In a moment, I hope your highness will accept defeat." When these words came out, the southern blue soldiers all sighed. Only the soldiers on Chu Qingyan's side looked at each other with apprehension. Chapter 929. At this time, Chu Qingyan said to Pang Huang, "Your Highness, before we make the bet, this one needs to make some preparations. I hope you'll allow it." Pang Huang didn't stop her. She nodded at Pang Huang, then turned around and gathered everyone together, as if she was secretly plotting something. Pang Huang looked at their actions, his eyes full of doubt. At this time, the soldiers beside him began to debate. "I don't know what this kid is doing. Your Highness, should we capture them now? What's there to worry about? They're like turtles in a jar, completely under our control. I don't think they'll be able to make any waves." The people beside him discussed animatedly, but Pang Huang remained indifferent. Soon, Chu Qingyan walked back and smiled, "Your Highness, you can begin." Hearing this, Pang Huang focused and said politely, "Please." Most of the people had the attitude of watching a show. In contrast, the Sichuan soldiers weren't as nervous as before. At this time, they all straightened their backs and looked at the Southern Blue Army with disdain. This made Pang Huang suddenly vigilant. A mysterious smile appeared on Chu Qingyan's face. Before Pang Huang could react, she turned sideways and placed her index finger and thumb by her mouth. Then she lifted her head and blew a short, crisp whistle. At first, there wasn't any movement, so the people didn't think much of it. However, they soon heard the sound of something breaking through the air from afar. Pang Huang suddenly narrowed his eyes. He seemed to have thought of something and looked at the sky in disbelief. At this time, a large dark black cloud flew over, covering a large part of the sky above them. "It's a flock of eagles!" Someone cried out in alarm. At this time, the black cloud was already whistling towards them. "Shoot the arrows, shoot the arrows!" Someone shouted. Xiao didn't care about these stupid humans at all. It ordered the eagle flock to split into two groups, one using its huge body to block the Southern Blue Army. The other group reached out its claws and grabbed the baskets in the hands of hundreds of soldiers. Then, under the cover of the other eagles, it flew back into the sky with a whoosh sound. Chu Qingyan looked at Little C's cries above her head, indicating for her not to worry. Afterwards, She flew off in the direction of Jiangning County without looking back. Southern Blue's arrows simply couldn't hit the eagles that were already flying high in the sky. By the time everything had returned to normal, all that was left was a ground full of eagle feathers, as well as the sorry state of the Southern Blue soldiers. Everything had been accomplished. Chu Qingyan clapped her hands and turned to look at Pang Huang. Just as she was about to say something, she choked on her words when she saw how Pang Huang was covered in eagle feathers. This feeling of wanting to laugh but not being able to do so was too unbearable. Pang Huang's face darkened as he shook off the eagle's feathers on his body. Indeed, the kind of person raised the same kind of animal. Humans were loathsome, and even their pets were loathsome. After cleaning up, Pang Huang looked up at Chu Qingyan and saw hundreds of eyes staring at him. He suddenly smiled helplessly and said to Chu Qingyan, "Chu Qing, I really underestimated you. You shouldn't think too highly of me. I'm afraid of getting fat." Chu Qingyan replied in a relaxed tone. Towards her teasing, he didn't continue. Instead, a layer of sharpness flashed through his proud and dark eyes. "Previously, when I heard that you had a flock of eagles by your side, I thought it was an exaggeration. Now that I've seen it, it really lives up to its reputation. You let me win." On this topic, she didn't want to talk too much. Under the heavens, there wasn't a second person who could tame the Fox clan and own an army of eagles. Unknowingly, there was a huge pressure on her. She didn't want to become the focus of others, because there was a saying in this world, an ordinary man is innocent, but possessing a jade ring becomes a crime. She didn't want to become the target of others plundering in the future. Chu Qingyan circled back to the main topic. "Then, does your highness have any objections to the result of this bet?" Pang Huang stared at her. Ever since he was born, there wasn't a moment when he wasn't scheming against others, or being schemed against by others. However, in the end, he was always the one who controlled the situation and won. However, there wasn't a single time when someone else's scheme was so open and aboveboard, and he was also on guard against it. Yet, he lost so thoroughly that he couldn't even have any objections. This person, people could see through him, but also couldn't see through him. It was like looking at a flower through the fog. She was a flower, but also not a flower. "Chu Qingyan, you can be considered one of the few opponents I have. This time, I'm willing to accept my loss." After Pang Huang sighed with emotion, he magnanimously admitted it. "Your Highness the Crown Prince." At this time, the soldiers behind him came back to their senses from the attack of the eagles and protested one after another. Pang Huang raised his hand and calmly said, "I, Pang Huang, will do what I say. I will never go back on my words. You don't need to say anything more." The Southern Blue soldiers couldn't help but sigh dejectedly. On the other hand, Sichuan's side was cheering and celebrating. Although Chu Qingyan had always believed that he would admit defeat, when he personally admitted it, she couldn't help but sigh in relief. Pang Huang looked at Chu Qingyan, who was happily celebrating with her companions, and an indescribable emotion appeared in his eyes. This person was young, but had the courage, meticulousness, and intelligence that were rarely seen in ordinary people. In a deadlock situation, she was able to think of a way to break out of it in a short period of time. She was even able to arouse his interest in making a bet. In such an unfavorable time, place, and people, she had opened up another path of her own. If it weren't for her meticulous mind, her proficiency in calculation, and her extreme grasp of human weakness, it would be impossible for her to fight for survival in such an environment. Among the people he knew, there were very few people like her. Such a person, his initial interest in her wasn't in vain. However, after this life and death struggle, as well as the contest of wisdom, he was even more certain that if such a person couldn't be used by him, then he could only destroy her. He definitely couldn't keep her by Xiao Su's side. Because this person was an army. "Chu Qingyan, before you leave, I have a question I want to ask," Pang Huang said very sincerely. After knowing that the other party was willing to fulfill his promise, and that Little Hai had already flown away with the life-saving herb, the matter on her mind was settled. Thus, Chu Qingyan very straightforwardly replied, "Ask away." Pang Huang asked with a smile, this time, Xiao Su was also poisoned? Chu Qingyan withdrew her smile and looked at him seriously. Your Highness, has anyone ever told you that you are very smart? Pang Huang had an expression of, as expected. If it weren't for Xiao Su being poisoned, she wouldn't have been so anxious and almost lost her composure. Many people have said that, but to receive praise from your mouth, I feel very honored. Once this was said, there was no need to be constrained by an answer. You are a very good opponent. If we hadn't met on the battlefield, perhaps we would have become friends, Chu Qingyan said in a regretful tone. If you are willing to give up on Xiao Su, my door here will always be open for you, Pang Huang said with a smile. Chu Qingyan was speechless at the seductive words that came out of his mouth every now and then. Chapter 930. At this moment, Xingyan Luo was vigilantly watching Fang Yu and the others. At the same time, she urged Chu Qingyan in a low voice, afraid that these people would change their minds at the last minute. If that happened, they wouldn't be able to leave even if they wanted to. Seeing that it was already noon, Chu Qingyan cupped her hands and said to Pang Huang, the green mountains will not change, and the green waters will flow forever. I believe that we will meet again very soon. Perhaps because the outcome had already been decided, she didn't have anything to worry about. Her expression and tone were very casual, and Pang Huang couldn't help but take a few glances at her. I agree with that. Although I really want to talk to you more, I won't force you since you're so eager to return home. I'm willing to accept my loss. Please. To be honest, he had selfish motives for wanting her to stay, but everything that had happened today was beyond his control. He had to go back and make a long-term plan. Chu Qingyan nodded at him, then quickly prepared to leave with her people. Chu Qingyan. When she passed by Pang Huang, Chu Qingyan heard him calling her. She couldn't help but stop in her tracks and look at him in confusion. You're the first person to beat me, or rather, dare to beat me. I don't want to be your enemy. Even now, he still hadn't given up on persuading her to join his side. Chu Qingyan turned to look at him. If you don't want to be my enemy, it's very simple. Withdraw your troops back to your country and sign a contract that you won't invade Sichuan again. Then I'll be happy to sweep the snow, brew tea, brew wine, and chat with you about the world. When these words came out, both of them knew that it was impossible. Pang Huang chuckled and didn't say anything else. He waved his hand and ordered his men to clear a path for them to leave. Chu Qingyan left with her people without looking back. When Chu Qingyan's group disappeared at the entrance of the valley, one of the soldiers suggested, Your Highness, should we send people to pursue these people? This way, it won't be considered a violation of the bet. Pang Huang waved his hand. No need. Don't pursue a cornered enemy. The soldiers exchanged glances. One of them took a risk and asked, Your Highness, actually, we don't have to agree to their terms. We have the advantage in numbers. There's no need to take this risk. It's boring to fight and kill every day. It's not bad to relax occasionally. Pang Huang turned and walked back. Let's go back. Prepare for the next plan. When he walked out of the mountain pass, he saw a group of people who were about to leave on horseback. He looked at the young man on horseback whose red robes were like flames and whose hair was as black as ink. Suddenly, the image of her dashing forward without regard for her own safety flashed before his eyes. Facing the ferocious killing move, at that moment, he hesitated. Did he have to use all his strength to receive her attacks, and then watch her internal energy break through her meridians and die? Or should she concede? Although she had lost, he could still hear her infuriating voice. He hesitated, but in the end, he chose to dissolve the dense inner energy on the sword instead of fighting her head-on. Although he had lost, he did not regret it. Actually, thinking back to the situation back then, if he hadn't held back and fought her head-on, perhaps both of them would have been injured. At that time, she should have already calculated her own life and death. If he was injured, then they would still have a chance to live. They would fight to the death. This was a terrifying opponent, but at the same time, he was a respectable opponent, causing him to feel a sense of empathy. Pang Huang retracted his gaze and ordered the people beside him, Let's go. Status determined one's position. If he couldn't subdue her, then in the future, he could only draw his sword and meet her. Chu Qingyan and the others led their horses back. Not daring to delay, they went back the way they came. Little girl, you really made me see you in a new light again. Cheng Yenluo finally dared to take a breath when she sensed that no one was following them. Then she tilted her head and rubbed her chin, teasing her. Chu Qingyan chuckled and said, "It's just luck. Don't be modest. How can anyone be so lucky?" Cheng Yenluo shook her head. She smiled. Actually, when people are highly nervous and have no way out, they will eliminate all distracting thoughts. Many things that they have heard or seen before will appear in their minds, but they didn't pay attention to them. For example, I suddenly remembered that Xiao went to another place to rest before entering the valley. I also remembered that Big Ice Cube once told me that Pang Huang likes to bet with people. So, I linked all these unrelated things together and formed a trap. But I didn't expect that he would propose a condition. But that's normal. He's a suspicious person who doesn't like to be passive, so I went along with his wishes and made him let his guard down. She shrugged after she finished speaking, as if she had just fought a difficult battle. Cheng Yenluo looked at her for a long time before sighing faintly. Little girl, sometimes I wonder if you're too smart or I'm too stupid. Otherwise, how can there be such a huge gap between us? Chu Qingyan smiled. You can think of it as me being smart and you being too stupid. As soon as she finished speaking, Cheng Yenluo immediately rolled her eyes and laughed uncontrollably. Alright, how did you know that he would really let us go? When she heard Pang Huang nod his head and let them go, she was shocked and had yet to recover from her previous domineering arrogance. The feeling of surviving a disaster was really something that she didn't want to experience a second time. Chu Qingyan was silent for a moment and then said, "Although Pang Huang is ruthless and unpredictable, there's one thing that many people can't do. He's willing to accept defeat when he's willing to bet. He can do things in a shady way, but he won't go back on what he promised. That's why I dared to bet with him." In fact, in the beginning she was still suspicious and worried that the rumors were false. But if she didn't try, they would definitely suffer a crushing defeat. But she chose to try. Even if the other party didn't admit it, she would accept it. If the other party was willing to admit defeat, it would be their chance to live. Fortunately, she had taken a gamble and won the bet. Pang Huang was really willing to keep his promise and let them go. After Chu Qingyan finished speaking, Cheng Yenluo suddenly fell silent. After a while, she spoke again, but her tone was not as relaxed as before. Little girl, at this moment, I suddenly understand Murong Ju's original intention. She didn't want Yenluo to suddenly lead the topic to the two of them, so she listened carefully, because she knew that what Yenluo needed at this moment was a tree hole to listen to her talk. During this period of time, when I've shouldered the responsibility, I can only put aside any important people or things. I finally understand one thing. On the battlefield, life and death are unpredictable. No one can guarantee that they can walk out alive. If it were me, I wouldn't dare to easily promise others the rest of their lives. Cheng Yenluo's tone was slightly melancholy and enlightened. Congratulations on thinking it through. Chu Qingyan smiled with curved eyes. Congratulations are fine. Why do you keep covering your mouth with your hand? Are you feeling nauseous? Cheng Yenluo had just finished teasing her when she saw blood seeping through her fingers. You're injured? Cheng Yenluo exclaimed in shock. Chapter 931. While Cheng Yenluo was panicking, Chu Qingyan stretched out her other hand to calm her. Yenluo, don't panic. I'm fine. What do you mean you're fine? Look at you. You're trembling. Calm down quickly. I'll check your pulse to see if your injuries are serious. Cheng Yenluo reined in her horse and wanted to dismount. Yenluo, listen to me. When I was fighting with Pang Huang just now, I suffered some internal injuries, but they are not very serious. Don't make a fuss about it. Pang Huang might not have sent anyone after us, but we still have to be careful. Who knows if we might encounter enemy troops? I have to maintain the morale of the troops. Chu Qingyan tried to persuade her with reason. Cheng Yenluo was moved by her pleading. But can you hold on like this? Of course. It's not like I haven't been injured before. Don't worry, I can do it. Chu Qingyan wiped the scarlet blood from the corner of her mouth and put down her hand to give her a reassuring smile. When Cheng Yenluo saw her pale face, her heart clenched in pain. But she was right. They had to return to Jiangning County first. That was the most important thing. Her heart ached for this little girl who was so considerate of the big picture. Little girl, I think if I were Murongju and Xiao Su were you back then, I'd probably abandon Murongju and go to the battlefield with you. I finally understand how he felt back then. Cheng Yenluo pursed her lips, revealing a bitter smile. How could such an admirable and pitiful leader be left to face those ferocious and cruel enemies alone? I think Ethereal has been feeling guilty for all these years. The person he's most sorry to is you. Chu Qingyan smiled gently. Cheng Yenluo fell silent. Chu Qingyan held the reins and walked on the path lined with strange rocks. Her voice was soft but firm. Why do misunderstandings exist between people? It's because one party doesn't say the reason, and the other party doesn't listen to the explanation. Why do the feelings between two people grow fainter and fainter? It's because they've never put themselves in the other party's shoes and thought in their shoes. Thus, one day, if we stand in the other party's perspective, or if we fall into the other party's shoes, we might be able to understand what we couldn't understand back then. After hearing this, Cheng Yenluo's expression changed. She seemed to have thought things through. Based on what you've said, it seems like I'm being unreasonable? Hearing this threat, Chu Qingyan smiled and denied, You know I didn't mean that. Cheng Yenluo chuckled and said in relief, I can let go of the fact that he abandoned me, but there's one thing I have to be calculative about. If he continues to be so self-righteous, I can still live well without him. This is unforgivable. Chu Qingyan smiled and said nothing. She hoped that one day, she would be able to eat the wedding candy of these two enemies. At this moment, she was barely holding on. Hua Ling let go of his shoulder and took a few steps back. Only when he hit the table did he lower his head dejectedly. Everyone present was filled with grief. Watching their master's life fade bit by bit like this, it was like their hearts were being roasted over a fire. At this time, the cry of an eagle suddenly rang out. Everyone else was immersed in grief and only Hua Ling heard it. This sound, could it be that Xiao Hai is back? Hua Ling's eyes lit up as he ran out the door. When he arrived in the yard, he looked up to see the group of eagles circling in the sky as well as Xiao Hai, who quickly flew down when he saw him. He saw Xiao Hai holding a basket in his claws. When he approached him, Xiao Hai's claws let go and the basket fell onto him. At this time, Ethereal and the others also came out. When Ethereal's eyes fell onto Hua Ling's hand, he immediately ran over. He took out the herbs in the basket and was filled with joy. This is a cattail. Master can be saved. After saying this, Ethereal snatched the basket from Hua Ling's hand and wildly ran into the kitchen. At this time, the giant eagles that flew down behind Xiao Hai all brought down baskets. Hua Ling looked at the baskets that filled the yard in the blink of an eye and muttered, Master can be saved, Jiangning County citizens can be saved, and the soldiers can also be saved. After muttering to himself, Hua Ling immediately came back to his senses. Feng Lu, what are you in a daze for? Quickly have people send these herbs down and let Ethereal take care of it. Good, good, good. Feng Lu immediately shouted. Hua Ling looked at the group of eagles circling above his head and couldn't help revealing a grateful smile. The little princess really is Master's savior. Chapter 932. In the evening, the setting sun shone on the ground, but it was still a little hot. After drinking the antidote, Xiao Su slowly woke up. He opened his eyes, and after adjusting to the light, he turned to look at his subordinates, who had been in a state of excitement ever since he woke up. Master, you, Hua Ling, immediately send troops to the mountain valley to support Qing Yan. Xiao Su tried his best to prop himself up and prepared to sit up. When he heard everyone's words, he spoke without delay. Why? Hua Ling was confused. This is a trap. Ian is in danger. You have to move quickly. Xiao Su took a deep breath and spoke with his eyes erect. Although his voice was weak, his tone made it impossible for anyone to resist. Hualing and Ethereal looked at each other, and a vague emotion was transmitted from their eyes. Ethereal spoke up, "Master, the young master has returned. The poison in your body has also been cured." Xiao Su's entire body relaxed when he heard this. "Have her come to see me now." This. Hualing scratched his head, and his expression was a little awkward. "Are you hiding something from this prince?" Xiao Su frowned, and his tone was a little cold. Hualing glanced at Ethereal and saw him sigh lightly. He knew that he couldn't hide this matter any longer, so he could only tell the truth. "The young master has returned today, but she suffered some internal injuries. She's currently recuperating in her room." "What exactly happened?" Xiao Su's face darkened, and he looked at his subordinates with a burning gaze. Ethereal stepped forward and said, "Yesterday, Master was suddenly on the verge of a poison outbreak. We were helpless, and at the critical moment, Xiaohai came back with a flock of eagles, and at the same time brought the antidote. The young master and Xiaoyan arrived in Jiangning County this morning. When they returned, the young master found out that you were fine after the antidote. The young master forced himself to take a deep breath and fainted. I heard from Xiaoyan that they encountered the Southern Song army in the valley. Thanks to the young master's quick thinking, they were able to return safely." Following that, Ethereal explained in detail how Qing Yenluo and the others dealt with the Southern Song army and successfully returned the herbs. When she was describing all of this, everyone present, except for Hualing and the others, was full of admiration for Chu Qingyan. At such a young age, she was brave and resourceful. If it was an ordinary person, it would be very difficult to do so. He had expected the little fellow to be trapped, for it was a trap set up for him. He had thought of the worst, and blamed himself for missing the best time to save the little fellow. Now that they knew that she had returned safely, being injured was already the best outcome. However, looking at the way the two of them stammered about her injuries, it was easy to imagine how much effort the little fellow had expended this time to escape. Xiao Su sat up and got out of bed. "Master, where are you going?" Hualing hurriedly stepped forward. Xiao Su raised his hand and said indifferently, "This prince is going to see Ian." "But your body?" As soon as Hualing spoke, Ethereal stopped him. He shook his head at Hualing, indicating for him not to interfere. Then he turned to Xiao Su. "Master, this subordinate will take you there." Xiao Su nodded, put on a coat and got up to leave. Hualing scratched his head and immediately followed. When Xiao Su entered the room, Qing Yenluo was performing acupuncture on Chu Qingyan. Without waiting for Xiao Su to speak, Qing Yenluo took the initiative to say without raising her head, her 5 viscera suffered a strong impact, causing her qi and blood to flow backward. However, there is no danger to her life. As long as she recuperates well and doesn't use martial arts for half a month, she will recover. At this point, Qing Yenluo had finished putting away the needles. She packed up the medicine box and sighed with emotion, "I'm afraid no one would believe that this is a girl. Her vitality is as tenacious as a cockroach. Such a delicate body, after so many years of tempering, is finally able to withstand beatings." She wasn't making fun of Xiao Su with these words. Instead, she sincerely admired and pitied such a smart and resilient little girl. She got up and said to the silent Xiao Su, "She will wake up in an hour. I'll go out and decoct her medicine first." Xiao Su nodded. Qing Yenluo was about to leave when she paused for a moment. With her back facing Xiao Su, she said softly, "I think I will never forget in this lifetime." She knew that one step forward would lead to death, but she still rushed forward without hesitation and fought with her life on the line. "Your Highness, you weren't there at that time, so you couldn't feel the impact. This little girl is convinced." After saying this, she smiled and left the room. Qing Yenluo was a person who dared to love and hate. Perhaps it was because she had been practicing medicine for so many years and had experienced so many life and death situations that she had an indifferent attitude towards most of the people and things around her. It was hard to imagine that she would say something like this. Ethereal and Hualing looked at the pale-faced girl lying quietly on the bed at the same time. Then they looked at each other and tacitly retreated. They closed the door and left this rare moment of peace to their two masters. Click! The door was closed. Xiao Su didn't immediately walk up. Instead, he quietly looked at the person lying on the bed. He didn't know how much time had passed, or perhaps it was only the blink of an eye. Many things flashed through his mind, and finally, it stopped at the haggard face in front of him. He slowly walked up and sat down on the chair. Then he used his eyes to trace the person in front of him, as if he could engrave her into the depths of his memory. Ian, I thought that if you stayed by my side, I would have enough power to protect you. Later on, you fell into danger again and again because of me. Only then did I realize that the one who was protected was me all along. His eyes were like water, and his voice was gentle as he looked at her. However, his heart seemed to be set off layers of waves that couldn't be calmed down for a long time. Our Ian has grown up. You're doing better than me. It's because I'm not strong enough that you get injured time and time again. In the future, I will work harder so that you won't charge and break through enemy lines for me again. You won't be in a dilemma of life and death, and you won't feel despair again. Xiao Su said softly, as if he was saying it to her, but also as if he was saying it to himself. You don't need to hear these words. I will use my actions to fulfill my promise. Xiao Su reached out to help her brush away the loose hair on her forehead. His fingertips fell on her eyebrows, cheeks, and finally he gently held her hand. At the moment when he fell into a coma, what he thought of the most was not the country, but the little girl in front of him. It turned out that he could lose anything, but the only thing he couldn't lose was her. In this life, he didn't have much. If even the heavens wanted to deprive him of this, he didn't know what he would do. In the room with the incense, time passed little by little. Quietly looking at a person like this, it was as if he could never get enough of it. In such a quiet room, her nose was filled with a familiar scent. Chu Qingyan tirelessly walked in her dream, as if there was something in front of her guiding her. She followed the voice in her heart and finally found the light exit. She tried her best to walk towards the light exit. The long curly butterfly wings trembled lightly, as if they were about to open in the next moment. Chapter 933. Chu Qingyan slowly opened her eyes and the darkness in front of her was gradually replaced by light. After a while, she adapted to the light and felt that there was someone beside her. She turned her head and a familiar face came into view. She smiled before saying anything. It was as if after a storm, she had finally welcomed the rainbow she had been waiting for. All her efforts had not been in vain. Xiao Su looked into her clear eyes and there were many things he wanted to say. At this moment he finally calmed down after a stormy sea. In the future, don't act on your own. He sighed and there was a faint regret in his eyes. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but curl her lips. Big ice block, you're a little too much. I finally came back from the brink of death. Not only are your first words not good, but you're also lecturing me. Be careful or I'll get angry. Perhaps it was because after surviving a disaster and seeing the person he cared about sitting in front of him, he finally let go of the fear and anxiety in his heart. Although he was complaining, his voice was relaxed. She was just talking, but she didn't expect the big ice block in front of her to suddenly hug her. Before she could react, he tightened his arms as if he wanted to rub her into his bones and blood. I thought I was going to lose you. Fortunately, you came back. He couldn't forget the fear that filled his heart before he closed his eyes. That feeling of powerlessness and helplessness was like a black fog that trapped him inside, and he couldn't escape no matter how hard he tried. To be more precise, he almost lost her. This feeling was terrible and he didn't want to experience it a second time. She didn't know that he had already guessed Pang Huang's plan. During the time she was unconscious, she was in a state of panic and uneasiness. But from his actions at this moment, she could feel that he rarely revealed his emotions. She was surprised at first, but then she reached out and wrapped her arms around his neck. She didn't know why, but she felt that there was no need to say anything at this moment. Quietly accompanying him was better than anything else. Burying himself deep into her shoulder, he could feel the warmth of her body under his hands and smell the fragrance of her body. This was the only way he could truly feel that she was alive in front of him. After an unknown period of time, the two separated. Although Xiao Su's heart was still palpitating, he quickly regained his composure. Xian Mo's eyes were full of smiles. Ian, after this incident, I've decided on something. What? She was still immersed in his embrace and hadn't come back to her senses. This battle must end as soon as possible. We can't let it drag on any longer. His tone became firm. He didn't want to waste any more time. In the past, he didn't care about life and death when he was alone, but now it was different. He had a family to feed, and the battlefield was constantly changing. He couldn't put the little fellow in such a dangerous situation. Chu Qingyan nodded heavily. I support you, but we can't rush for quick success. We have to plan everything thoroughly before we act. Xiao Su reached out and patted her head. Of course. She smiled at him. Then she raised her doubts. Big ice block, don't you think it's strange? It seems that many of our actions are under the enemy's eyes. We are in the open and they are in the dark. We don't know what they are thinking, but they know what we are doing next. Xiao Su nodded. He frowned slightly. This feeling is getting stronger and stronger in the past few days. I suspect that there is a mole among our people. Chu Qingyan glared. I also have a feeling. Logically speaking, when we were preparing to cooperate with the enemy, even if the enemy guessed our plan, it's impossible for them to be so clear about our movements. Not only do they know when we sneak in at night, they also know our troop deployment. It's like a roundworm in our stomach. Every step, every pressure is accurate. This makes me suspect that the enemy has sneaked into our camp. Chu Qingyan's words caused Xiao Su's expression to become incomparably calm. But in the depths of his eyes, there was a strong killing intent. Once it's confirmed that there is a mole, then it's very possible that Xiao Ran's battle arrangements for the past 6 months are all under the enemy's control. Although Xiao Ran hadn't been in front of him for 4 years, he had taught Xiao Ran for a period of time. He clearly knew that this child had a certain talent in military arrangements. Even if Pang Huang had rich experience, Xiao Ran couldn't have lost so tragically and so quickly. Thinking about how the Southern Blue Army had taken over the past 6 months, Xiao Su was even more certain. Big ice block. If there is an enemy in the camp, it's simply too scary. Chu Qingyan said in a low voice, frightened. Xiao Su's eyes deepened. Following that, his killing intent retreated. His hand lightly patted the thin blanket on her body. His tone was less sharp than before, and his gaze was as gentle as water. You are injured now. Don't worry about this first. I will take care of it. Hearing him say this, Chu Qingyan nodded in relief. Do you want to sleep for a while more? Looking at her pale face, his heart slightly clenched. Chu Qingyan revealed a wronged expression. I think I've already slept for the whole day. Don't let me sleep anymore. I haven't eaten properly for 2 days. Can you ask the kitchen to cook a bowl of hot and sour soup for me? You can eat it, but forget about the soup. Avoid it, he emphasized. Once these words came out, she could only give up on this thought. Her mouth was full of remorse. Okay, didn't they say that sick people are the most important? Why do I feel like I don't have any human rights at all? Xiao Su caressed her cheeks and shook his head helplessly. Then, he went out and ordered people to prepare food. The sound of him slowly walking out fell into her ears, making her feel exceptionally at ease. She slightly curved her lips into a satisfied smile. Finally, she could hold her head high and stand by his side without a guilty conscience. She could protect herself, and also protect the people she cared about. Love could make a person strong. When Xiao Su returned to the room, the person who was complaining about being hungry had fallen into a deep sleep again. This trip had exhausted all her energy. Xiao Su lowered his voice and walked to the bed. He reached out and tucked in the quilt. His gaze was as gentle as water. Go to sleep. Leave the rest to me. He smiled faintly and then walked out of the room. Master, the food is here. When Hua Ling saw his master, he immediately called out loudly. Unfortunately, his voice became softer and softer under his master's heavy gaze. Let the kitchen keep the food warm. When Ian wakes up, send it over to her. By the way, tell Yen Luo that there are no servants here. Let her take care of Ian. Xiao Su instructed. Hua Ling immediately shut up and complied. After a quarter of an hour, you and Turin stay in the conference hall. I have something for you to do. Xiao Su said faintly and turned to leave. Hua Ling stood upright solemnly. Yes. Looking at his master's hazy figure under the sunlight, Hua Ling had an illusion. Although his master's appearance was still cold and indifferent, in reality, he was becoming more and more like a normal person. He had 7 emotions and 6 desires, and knew how to be sad and happy. Good news? Also, send an order to Water Spirit. Within 3 days, I want to see the background of these people. Fong Lu, bring some people to the tower to replace Jin Exin. Have him return to Chu Ian's side. Don't let anyone near her room. The two accepted the order and left. When only Xiao Su and Turin were left in the room, Turin asked, Master, what does this subordinate need to do? Turin, what do you think of Jin Xian's performance these days? Xiao Su said calmly. Turin stilled at first. He didn't understand the meaning of his master's words. Master always spoke concisely and didn't say anything unnecessary. Mentioning Jin Exin, he must have his reasons. He thought seriously for a while and objectively evaluated. This child, Jin Xin, is very hardworking. This subordinate still remembers when the young princess took him in 4 years ago. He couldn't even last a few moves against this subordinate and the others. This subordinate can feel his unwillingness to fall behind others, but he won't be impatient, and he won't be in a hurry to succeed. This subordinate is very optimistic about him. He knows where his shortcomings are. In these few years, he has been constantly exploring and humbly asking for guidance from us subordinates. Before dawn, he has been practicing martial arts. When everyone is asleep, he is still practicing. It's hot and cold, but he hasn't missed a single day. Moreover, he doesn't fight or snatch and is willing to be left behind. In him, this subordinate can see tenacity and patience. To be able to reach this stage at such a young age, in a few years, if he has a vast sky, he will definitely be able to carve out his own world. After Tu Ling finished speaking, he calmed himself down and looked at his master with a puzzled expression. Xiao Su listened carefully. Because of Turin's words, ripples appeared in his heart. Turin was the calmest among all his subordinates. Although he didn't speak much, his words were dignified, which was quite similar to his style. Jin Xian being able to get Turin's affirmation was within his expectations. However, to be able to get such a high affirmation from Turin was beyond his expectations. But this was also what he wanted. His purpose was to get an objective evaluation of Jin Xian through other people's eyes. Do you think Jin Xian has the ability to lead troops? As soon as he finished speaking, Turin, who was waiting for a reply nervously, looked at the person in front of him with surprise and joy. Was his master planning to put Jin Xian in an important position? He controlled his emotions and tried to make his tone as calm as possible. He replied fairly. This subordinate thinks that although Jin Xian is only 15 years old, his temperament is firm. He is more mature and steady than his peers. If he can be nurtured, he will definitely be an outstanding general. Jin Exin was not only the person beside the young consort, he was also their comrade who fought side by side. After so many years of being together, they had deliberately made things difficult for him at the beginning, but in the end, they had witnessed his improvement. Even the Shaolai cavalry, who were a group of people who were not easy to fit in, had already subconsciously accepted him. He could be considered as Jin Xian's half-master. He also hoped that Jin Xian would be able to stand out and no longer be behind others. Xiao Su was quiet for a moment. Then, under Turin's expectation, he raised a shallow smile. The army is currently in need of people. There are internal and external troubles. There are not many people who can be trusted. There are also not many people who can be put in an important position. At this time, we need to bring in some new blood and bring about a new direction. Only then can we slowly change this rotten and inflexible army formation. His imperial father used nearly 5 years of time to break up the army of generals that he had carefully selected and nurtured. His many years of hard work fell apart. This was not the most important thing. What was most important was that after his people were buried and demoted, there were empty military positions. Most of the factions in the imperial court, in order to divide these positions, sent people, but they did not have any real ability. Through these few battles, he saw through them at a glance. These people were no longer the brothers by his side in the past. They did not have the courage to fight, nor did they have the real experience to deal with the ever-changing situation on the battlefield. This was not a battlefield for him alone. Victory or defeat depended on this army, whether they were united, whether they were brave and hot-blooded. Therefore, this time, he wanted to completely change the blood of the three armies. But before that, he needed to select people. As for Gene Exen, he was the first person he thought of. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.